Hey guys, it's Breck Bassinger, but you may recognize my voice as Stargirl from CW Stargirl. And as Stargirl, I always listen to Stargirl After Show. It's so much fun getting to listen to all of my different castmates' interviews, hear about DC lore, and of course all the Stargirl history. So make sure you go listen to Stargirl After Show. And yes, I know I just said Stargirl like 50 times, but seriously, go listen to it.
Hello everyone, Screenplay Archaeology host KiramidHead here. Before we get into today's episode, I just want to get some intro stuff out of the way. First things first, we are now part of the Fandom Limb Media podcast network, so I'm going to link their site down below. And that's why you would have just heard a promo for another podcast, because they're another one of the shows on the network. And as per usual, if you like the show and you'd like to know more, you can check out our social media pages on Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, and even Instagram now. The show also has a Patreon if you're willing to gift money, but you don't really need to if you don't want to. And we also have a Discord server, which you can join if you want to chat with, the group members there. So that link is going to be down below as well. So yeah, sit back, guys, and enjoy the show. All right, everyone. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Screenplay Archaeology podcast. I'm your host, KiramidHead.
I'm Chloe, and Alex wishes he could be here tonight, but October's been insanely busy for us.
Yeah, I can see why.
Yeah, I think he's having to work nights, if I remember correctly. So yeah, no, he didn't have the time to read these scripts, and I don't blame him either.
I read through all three of these surprisingly fast.
ADHD gets to you or gets to me, and I'm a working girl now, so when I'm not selling handbags, I'm trying to read this in my downtime.
Well, at least it's easier to read than what we read last year.
True, but at least I had the Farron's drafts to look forward to talking about.
Well, I could say all three of these I like more than the Rosenberg script, but not that that's saying a lot, but
I don't know if I can say if I like it more or less. I think I kind of view it with contempt. At least with Two Faces of Evil, maybe I don't find it with that much contempt because at least it became a better product. In the end, but it's interesting to see the early vision of H2O.
Yes, and to clarify what we're talking about, we're doing yet another Halloween-themed episode as you are undoubtedly aware of from having seen the title and clicked on it.
Unless you're just going down the autoplay rabbit hole.
Yeah, which I always turn off autoplay if I'm being honest.
Same here.
But tonight we're covering 3 Halloween scripts, and basically it's what I was thinking of as Halloween The Leftovers, because they don't really theme together very well, but thankfully Chloe here came up with a much better name, and it's Halloween The H2K Generation. So, or whatever. And so we're going to be looking at an early version of Halloween 7 that basically morphed into H2O, which is a fucking stupid title, and I'll never get over that. And
at least it's actually given a subtitle rather than just being called Halloween again, just because they brought back Laurie Strode and rebooted its timeline.
I mean, it could be worse. They could have just stuck a 7 in place of one of the L's.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm okay with them calling Scream 5 just Scream, as long as it's not 5 Cream.
No, it needed to be called Scream 5.
Anything other than 5 Cream.
Come on, we were already memeing it on the internet.
But, okay. And then
speaking of Scream, we're going to be mentioning that guy here in a little bit.
Oh, yes, Kevin Williamson. And then after that, we're going to be skipping right over Resurrection, as most sane people should. And we're going to be talking about 2 different scripts that were written for Halloween 9, and they were 2 of the only 3 to actually go forward and get a full script written. So that's a whole bizarre rabbit hole to go down.
One that involves scumfuckery on 2 producers' parts.
Oh, yes, and Busta Rhymes again, sadly.
Well, they almost casted his cousin in Resurrection.
As him?
No. They almost casted his cousin, Busta-Nut.
Oh. Okay.
I've been saving that one all month just for this.
Yeah, God.
Well, it was either this or an Alec Baldwin show.
Yeah, let's not go there quite yet.
I shot her 6 times!
God. We're not even into... Everybody's already turned the episode off. Okay, so...
Jesus. Okay, I promise I'll behave this time.
So, we don't really need to talk about the series as a whole, because I think we did it twice.
Yeah, just basically after the theatrical cut of Halloween 6 wrote the Thorn timeline into a corner, and Donald Pleasance died, and thus nothing could be done with the Loomis character. It was obvious that the story needed to drift away from the Thorn timeline in some fashion, as much as I would have loved to have seen it continue.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody actually... I do believe Daniel Farrens did do a Halloween 7 treatment, but it didn't really go anywhere, and I don't think he wanted to take it anywhere either, especially after how awful working on that movie was.
Well, especially when the theatrical cut just does things that he had no idea were really being done. Like, people still ask him, what is the cult even doing in the theatrical cut? Where it seems like they're growing test tube Michael Myers in the third act.
They're making they're making the super shape from the end of the Etchison script.
This Halloween Inferno. No, I'm not joking. There was actually, there's like a Canadian Halloween fan film, called Halloween Inferno, where I think they turn him into like a super soldier or something like that. Or it even played at a theater in Canada for like a week.
Oh boy.
There's even cause there's also, from like the late 90s, I remember finding this back in 2007. There's, actually a pretty decent fan film called The Death of Michael Myers, and it actually follows up the theatrical cut as best as it can. We could talk about that some other time, but it's interesting to see a fan try to solve all of these issues.
The issues of the theatrical cut, Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh boy, but so...
That was also made in Canada.
So yeah, it was Halloween 6 was Dimension's first Halloween movie.
Yeah.
And like their very first movie was Hellraiser 3.
Yeah.
And they immediately screw it up right off the bat. And
yeah, if they kept their goddamn mouth shut, we would have had a good, a pitch perfect Halloween 6.
Which then they still couldn't take anywhere because of Donald Pleasance passing away.
Which I raised the question last time, maybe he should not have been included as a character in Farron's script, even though I love his inclusion.
Yeah, I mean, again, it would mean he would have gotten killed off in that stupid scene at the end of Halloween 5, but...
True, but granted, and I don't think even Daniel Farrens or anyone involved truly knew how in poor health Donald Pleasance was until they were actually, like...
Shooting.
Shooting or having to, get Donald involved, even though he was game for it. He loved the script for Halloween 6.
Yeah, he said he wanted to do. He said like when he was making 6, he would come back and keep making them. Yeah,
so it's and it really is. It's been said before that the series really is not the same without him. It's had its dark moments, but it has gotten better. But you can tell there's that like the lingering. There's something missing, and that's why I think we all loved it in Halloween Kills when the character actually shows up, and it was done appropriately.
Yeah, that was actually really cool, and they did a good job with the makeup on that guy.
Oh yeah, that was impressive, and even they even got the voice down.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that they got the voice down for the audio cameo in 2018 as well, more so than the movie we're about to talk about.
True, because Alex pointed this out to me, the sound mix in Halloween Kills actually changes when it goes from 2018 to 1978.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
It changes from a stereo audio mix to mono.
That's cool.
Like the original. Yeah. And I even noticed, like, there's in the Myers house in the first film, when they're going up the stairs, you can see a bit of the wall paint has peeled off, revealing like the boarding underneath. And I was like, oh, there's probably no way they'll get that pattern right in Halloween Kills. I'll understand if they don't get that detail part in. And then I was watching the movie, of course, with Alex on opening night, and here I'm like, got it right. No.
Yeah, and Halloween 6 did really poorly theatrically, didn't it? Wasn't it like a huge bomb?
I mean, it made its money back, but it was number 2 at the box office, and it came up against against this little movie you might have heard of called Seven.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you had the Weinsteins on one side, and you had Kevin Spacey on the other, and Spacey won.
Yeah.
Okay, I've made my tasteless joke for the night.
Yeah.
But so what happens is that H2O came out and was like this partial reboot. It wiped out everything except Halloween 1 and 2. So it did what the Godzilla movies had done like once by that point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's honestly...
And the Texas Chainsaw Massacre had already done twice.
Oh God, that's right. Every Chainsaw Massacre movie is like, no, we're a sequel to the original. Fuck. Even the new one is supposed to be doing that. Jesus.
And they're just calling it Texas Chainsaw Massacre. God damn it. I'm done, Hollywood.
Yeah, and the movie ended up actually being, it's honestly really good.
It is. It's probably not my favorite in the franchise. And again, I think a lot of that comes down to, again, my love of what Halloween 6 was going for. And the fact is that they had to abandon all of that mythology for this. And then on top of that, I do think it has a little too much of Scream's identity in it.
Yeah, it's got that aesthetic.
Yeah, which I understand that at the time that's what it was. But the fact is you have a script that's partially written by Kevin Williamson. And then, and also, I was going to say Halloween 6 is like the last, like, pre-Scream, like, after Scream, everything had to be acknowledging the fact that it's a slasher film, where they'd get meta about it. It's kind of like the last pre-meta slasher movie, which is an interesting capsule to put it in. But with, H2O, you have Kevin Williamson co-writing it.
Uncredited.
Yeah, uncredited, but still, and co-producing it. You'd also have, Patrick Lussier doing the editing. And then, Marco Beltrami's score sort of replaces John Ottman's score at times as well. So you get, some Scream music that was like used as temp music initially.
Yeah, I do definitely see there is a lot of the Scream influence, but that's just where the slasher movies were at that point. And they also watched Scream 2 in the movie, which makes no sense, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But no, H2O is just, it works. It's one of those movies where it always feels like it's going, and that just fucking ends.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good movie. It's got a good arc for Laurie Strode in it, and Josh Hartnett is good in the movie. The cast in general is good. It's got some decent kills.
Mm-hmm.
And overall, it's just a likable little movie.
Yeah, it's definitely a crowd pleaser, I would say, because Halloween 6 is so divisive that it really needed that rallying cry afterwards. So I understand why people might list it as one of their favorites. And if you view it as a trilogy with 1 and 2, it's a nice cap.
Yeah.
And of course, it was Jamie Lee Curtis's idea to return to the series, and she even wanted John and Deborah to be involved, but I think John kind of sensed that he wouldn't get his way with Miramax involved. And sort of basically, he even says in an interview, like, well, God bless you guys, but no thanks.
Yeah, and he also felt like he needed to get he didn't get his money from the original movie still.
Yeah.
But that's a whole thing, and that we're going to kind of have to circle around back to that because, Jamie Lee Curtis was already kind of talking about coming back to Halloween, and she was trying to get Carpenter and Hill back even before this script was written, but this is the version they were looking at before that was all finalized, and it's Halloween, Two Faces of Evil, written by Robert Zappia, who I looked at his filmography. He didn't write a whole hell of a lot.
Yeah, especially in terms of, especially also in like terms of horror, he's mostly like, he was a production staff on like a season of Home Improvement.
Yeah, and he wrote, like, half his filmography is, like, knockoff animation movies.
Or, like, Tom and Jerry.
And he did write a Bloodlist script a few years ago, which I read, and it was okay. It was kind of your standard exorcism kind of movie. And that actually is getting made, so...
Yeah, we'll see if that has, like, a massive rewrite done to it. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And so the script basically is, it's very similar to Halloween H2O, broadly, in that it involves Michael Myers ending up at an exclusive academy. You'll hear it's an all-girls school. It's still called Hillcrest, only it's in Illinois. Only there is no Laurie Strode in this, and so it's him. He kind of is stalking this girl at the school after escaping from this ridiculous prison that he's in at the beginning. And kind of as the B-plot, you have a cop who is tracking down this guy that he thinks is a Michael Myers wannabe, and sort of like keeping him around to like get insight. And the guy's like, oh, I can offer you insight on how Michael Myers thinks, because he's like an obsessed fanboy. And so he's kind of like driving around with this guy doing like kind of discount Silence of the Lambs while like Michael Myers stuff is going on at the school.
Yeah, it's a very quick script, but it was kind of a slug to get through, at least for me.
I got through this one pretty quickly.
Yeah, well then again, I don't know, because it didn't have anything to like hold my interest, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. Now the
like the Etchison draft of Halloween 4 and Daniel Farron scripts I can like talk all day about, essentially.
Yeah, and this one it's important to mention, this was meant to go direct to video.
Yeah, which would have break my heart. Halloween 5 is technically a direct to video movie, depending on what territory it was released in.
Oh yeah, that's right. No, basically how this happened was that he got brought in for he had a meeting with Dimension exec Richard Potter about trying to sell a spec script called Population Zero, which was a sci-fi spec. And then the exec basically went, no, I don't want that. Would you like to take a stab at Halloween? Pardon the pun. And so he went into it with the instruction to basically take it into a new direction.
Yeah.
And this is still a sequel to Halloween 6 in this version, by the way.
The theatrical cut.
Yeah, theatrical cut. Although it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. There's a reason why Steve Miner, when he was directing H2O, kind of like put his foot down on that whole thing and said, I think we should only make this a sequel to the first two.
Okay, so it opens with a POV of a killer. It's a POV shot of a killer watching as the teenage Deborah Wiley is being left home for the night in Nauvoo, Illinois, because they're very specific about this by her parents, so she can watch her brother Lee and his friends while they have a slumber party. And so we get the killer walks around the house and watches through the windows as Lee and his friends begin to play hide and seek, entering the house through the back door and taking a chef's knife from the block.
By the way, boys don't have slumber parties. But this also kind of begins a weird bit in the script where I wonder how much Robert Zappia understands women.
It also starts another running bit in this thing where it's like, he's really adamant about letting you know that it's a chef's knife and not a butcher's knife.
I mean, that's kind of funny.
Because it keeps coming up. I'm like, okay.
But, no, here's the way he introduces, like, the first female character is they're followed by Deborah Wiley, their teenage daughter, a perfect 10 any way you slice her. And I'm like, dude, is she not even 18 yet?
Dude, that fucking pun.
Yeah, I know. And she also is talking like a Valley girl.
Yeah. What a nice way to name a character after Deborah Hill, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so...
Well, then again, Halloween 6 has a Deborah who's like a mouse of a wife.
Who's getting beaten by John.
Yeah.
Okay, so Deborah, who is talking on the phone with a friend, she accidentally finds one of Lee's friends hiding in the shower just before the power goes off. And Deborah goes back to her room, finding another one of the kids in her closet and scares them off.
Kind of reminds me of the opening of The Fun House.
Yeah, that's true.
Better movie than this script.
And the novelization is better than both. And that's when the killer leaps out from behind her clothes. So she has like a serious walk-in closet here where he could just hide behind hangers and shit.
Yeah, it reminds me of the opening kill in Black Christmas.
Huh.
In just that manner, but...
Okay, which Black Christmas are we talking about?
The original. Okay,
so leaps out from behind the clothes and tries to strangle her to death, and the angle very specifically doesn't show anything other than his hands. And Deborah manages to get away by gouging his arm, but unfortunately backs into a wall, and the killer slices her with the knife. Which, why didn't you just go for that immediately?
Also, why didn't the killer just bring his own knife?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we then go back to Lee and his friends.
Maybe because he was afraid it would get tied to him, but as you can kind of see this throughout the script, this guy's not really the criminal mastermind if he was figured out this easily.
Yeah, he's an idiot. And he's fucking annoying, too. He's like a Matrix sequel character.
Yeah.
We then go back to Lee and his friends, who hear Deborah screaming. Lee goes looking for her. He hears her voice faintly calling for help, and pinpoints the sound is coming from the closet. And Lee opens the door, only for Deborah's body, her throat slit, fall on top of him, and his screams lead into the main titles. She was talking with her throat slit? Oh, so yeah, she was doing a Donald Duck impersonation.
Or, like the plants, the meat plants from Motel Hell.
So later that night, paramedics remove Deborah's corpse from the scene, and the police are investigating, dusting for prints. They're doing everything, basically. And then Detective Richard Kincaid and his associate, is basically his little assistant who follows him around, Janet Blake, are on the scene, and Kincaid speculates that the killer could be Michael Myers, and they constantly misspell Myers in this.
Yeah, I just realized it wasn't even out yet, but the 20th anniversary VHS from like Anchor Bay has this same misspelling on the back. I think it's a 20th anniversary. I think it's a port of the Criterion remaster from the 90s. But and they also get Michael's age wrong. They say he was 7.
That's right. They do say that. They get that wrong in a couple places, I think, throughout these scripts.
Yeah, well, and also, this is where we finally acknowledge 4 through 6's continuity by basically saying that after the theatrical cut of Halloween 6, SWAT team arrested Michael, and Loomis's body somehow never to be found, even though it's like, okay, well, if he was in Smith's Grove, there's only so much space that it could be hidden in.
Yeah, they basically say that, like, why was the SWAT team at Smith's Grove?
I would assume Tommy, Kara, and Danny, and Steven, they got to the police.
Or, yeah, something like that. Yeah, we learned that Loomis has been missing for some time, and Kincaid also speculates that Lee could have killed Deborah, citing Michael's age when he made his first kill, but thankfully his friends provide an alibi for him. I'm like, okay, so this guy's a dick.
Well, yeah, he's also smoking at a crime scene.
Oh, yeah, that's true. And so, yeah, ever since then, Michael has been locked up in Middle Rock State Penitentiary for it's 3 years later, they say. And so Kincaid goes there, and it's got thick concrete walls, multiple doors, double pass keys, and to top it off, a GPS ankle bracelet just in case a prisoner escapes from all that. And it's like underground, too?
Yeah, but they don't even really play with the location. I mean, say what you will about the Halloween Asylum drafts, like even like the 2014 draft, it at least still played with its location of how would Michael escape all of these locks. Well, in this script, it's like, oh, well, he just fakes his death, and all the security didn't really even get played into.
Yeah, and they do a really stupid approach to that, but we'll get there. Michael is still...
I was going to say, it does feel a little unfair critiquing this, since this feels like a very early draft. This is like a first draft.
Yeah, I think you only got to write this one.
Yeah, but I guess we're approaching it from the mindset of if they really, really went with this, which it seems like they were about to.
Maybe. But Michael is still in his cell with a Lecter-like muzzle on his face. And satisfied they can't be the killer, Kincaid leaves, mentioning that he's dealing with a copycat who is picking up where Michael left off, and I don't really know what the hell he means by that.
Wouldn't that mean he's continuing the Thorn plot?
Nah. Oh, boy. But, Michael is watching in a POV shot, so you get the impression that the mention of a copycat is what sets him off. But then that's not really what Michael does throughout this thing, really.
Yeah, and also, okay, if you're gonna have Michael versus, like, an imposter of him, the this script doesn't even really go with that angle. It never really plays with it.
No, because we just immediately go to the whole academy setting, which we go right there where we meet our other main character, Joanne Whittington, who's essentially filling the Laurie Strode role from the original movie.
And this is like my one complaint about like slasher movie critique, because then it like gives hack writers bad writing skills, or like it contributes to like these slasher movies that have to mention that this character is a virgin.
Yeah.
Do so in an unsubtle way, and also not the virgin survives rule is not always true.
Yeah.
Go back to Black Christmas, although the ending of Black Christmas leaves her fate ambiguous. Friday the 13th Part 2, Ginny is obviously having sex with Paul.
Oh, even in Part 1.
Yeah, in Part 1, although it's a different dynamic. In Part 2, Ginny and Paul are having a happy relationship, where in Part 1, Alice is like considering leaving.
Yeah. But yeah, it's not... The point stands.
The point stands is that the whole final girl being a literal virgin is bullshit. I want to dispel this myth. I understand, as Victor Miller, who co-wrote the first Friday the 13th, has put it, that what separates the final girl from the other characters is in a different sense, but not that she has never had sex, at least in his mind.
Yeah.
And so, but every dime store like slasher movie critique has to point this out, and then you have, based on those critiques, then writers trying to address that in their scripts, but in the laziest way possible, and I hate it. Hate it.
Also, interestingly enough, Joanne has a friend named Linda in this.
Different spelling, but still.
Yeah. And we get this whole aside about how Joanne's getting bullied by this girl named Amy, and that never even comes up again. Amy's not even a character in this. And if she's even in a scene, she doesn't have any dialogue. So.
Yeah, it makes no sense. And they also go to Freeman's drugstore. I wonder if the Freeman is a reference to the Halloween producer Paul Freeman.
Possibly. But we also get introduced to another friend named Sherry Hackney.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah.
And her boyfriend, Eddie, he's the one working late at the Freeman drugstore. And some guys from the Woodbury Academy, which is the male equivalent of Hillcrest. I just called it Hellcrest. Jesus Christ. But they're going to be there, too. And they want Joanne to sneak out to go meet them, and saying she'll need a date for the dance on Saturday. And there's this guy called Frank Roth that she seems to like, and this guy's barely in this thing.
He's talked up a lot like as if he was David Lee Roth's son.
Yeah, or somebody. And then back at Middle Rock, Michael is found lying prone in his cell, as pronounced dead by the prison doctor Ashford. And I'm like, yeah, Dr. Ashford would know if someone's undead or not, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it.
So Michael's body gets wheeled out by a county worker named Chuck Duffy, who is told who the body is before he loads it into the back of a hearse. And so Chuck drives the body to the local morgue, which for some reason is in the middle of nowhere, checking his rearview mirror as he goes. And, we get Mr. Sandman on the radio, because we can't avoid that chestnut.
Yeah.
And at least, I guess, there's no cow.
Or asking what the difference between jam and jelly is.
Yeah.
Guys, if you thought my Columbine joke was in poor taste, if you thought my Alec Baldwin joke was in poor taste, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 has a necrophilia joke in it.
But he gets there with no problems. He meets with his co-worker, Tom Abrams, who wants to charge people money to look at Michael's corpse like he's Jesse James or something. And after
it's like in The Simpsons when Homer they have like the angel that turns out to be
he's gonna have a little song.
And it just turns out that this is a promotion for a mall.
That was a typo. And so, they look at Michael's still unseen face and declare him to be incredibly ugly. I'm like, are you confusing Michael Myers with Jason?
Well, I mean, he is a burn victim, and also in the theatrical cut of Halloween 6, he was beaten in the face and had green blood spewing out.
Yeah, that's true.
So I can't imagine it's a pretty sight at this point.
I mean, his face was fine in Halloween 5.
Yeah, somehow.
Why are we? And so Chuck gets...
Whatever, magic, whatever.
So there's this whole thing where Chuck gets spooked when the body sits up, but it's just the effects of rigor mortis. And so Tom goes, hey, take it back to the freezer. And then the freezer door keeps popping open. And this is like the scene in 2018 with the closet door. And Michael just pops out, grabs a power saw, and lunges at him.
This is also kind of reminding me of Friday the 13th, the final chapter.
Oh, yeah.
Which also has a necrophilia bit in it.
Yeah. Tom hears the screams and goes looking for Chuck, finding his bloody, split-skulled corpse has been moved into the body bag Michael was in. And Michael then shoves a draining rod into Tom's neck, bleeding him out. And then we go to the drugstore scene. And so the girls from Hillcrest are all hanging out with the Woodbury boys. And Linda's with Jeff, her jock boyfriend. Sharon, who's another girl who just gets randomly introduced, is with the womanizing Chad Bailey. And every time the Sharon name comes up, I'm just thinking of Sharon from Exorcist 2.
Yeah.
And Sherry is with Eddie, as we established, and Joanne is awkwardly sitting near Frank and not saying much. And the store has a Michael Myers mannequin complete with mask, coveralls, and a butcher's knife on display. And Frank is just like, that's historically inaccurate.
Yeah, when also this is in Illinois, the place where Michael Myers was a killer, you know. That'd be like if I was in Wisconsin and there's like
an Ed Gein
Jeffrey
museum.
Ed Gein or like again, this would even be apocryphal or not apocryphal. This would be heresy to have like at a gay club have like a Jeffrey Dahmer statue. You know, just imagine how insulting that would be.
Yeah, and then so there's like more. I kind of glossed over a lot of like the conversations in this, but they talk about the inaccuracies again. It's like, shut up.
And they also talk about virginity. And again, Chad is called like a womanizer. And I'm sorry, this guy's an incel.
He's like, hey, baby, I could take care of that for you.
Yeah, or they even make a Virgin Mary joke.
Yeah. And there's like teasing at Joanne because she doesn't have costume or a date. And she points out it's 11:30 and they need to get back. So everybody leaves except for Eddie and Sherry, who plan to get on in the back room. And I'm like, oh, did this guy read the Etchison script?
This scene is nowhere near as good as that scene.
No.
No suspense.
No Michael thrusting the corpse.
Yeah, like they're Barbie dolls.
Yeah. And they're interrupted by the door jingling as it opens, despite the clothes sign being flipped around. And Eddie leaves to see who it is. And a while passes before he returns, so Sherry goes looking for Eddie, not noticing that the mannequin is in a different position. And she finds Eddie with the butcher's knife to jam through his forehead, and then the mannequin moves, revealing Michael fully dressed as the Shape, and he grabs her by the throat, lifts her off the ground, choking her to death. So he's like the Tyler Mane Michael Myers.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of a cool moment, him just standing there and then moving.
Yeah, I like that.
Although it makes you wonder what he did with the mannequin.
He just like tossed it off to the side.
Yep, I guess. And the next day we go to Kincaid, who's talking to someone on the phone about how he thinks Michael is back. And at a hearse, the body and 2 morgue workers are missing. So Michael is apparently like the ultimate janitor. He cleaned up all the blood, all the bits of skull and brains.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the call is done, Janet, who doesn't believe him either, brings him some new evidence that blood and tissue were found under Deborah's nails, and that they also have a new lead. A magician named Cain Gabriel, yes, that's really his name, was hired for Lee's birthday, and apparently creeped Deborah out by staring at her. He has a criminal record, including various misdemeanors and rape.
Yeah, hey parents, make sure your child's birthday entertainer, not a rapist.
Yeah, he's worse than he's worse than the clown from Uncle Buck.
He's like a Victor Salva character.
Oh God.
Although I think Deborah would be too old for him.
Oh God, I can't possibly edit all this out now. But no, so Kincaid goes to check out Kane's apartment, where he gets the landlady who's like, oh, this guy is so nice. He's always doing stuff at the children's hospital. And she lets Kincaid into the apartment. Super illegal, by the way.
Yeah.
And they find a wall dedicated to Michael's killings, complete with graphic crime scene photos. So he has it's like the storage unit from the first season of True Detective that Matthew McConaughey has. All the evidence up on the wall and everything.
Yeah. And then he probably has all the unproduced Halloween scripts printed out, and he's probably holding on to Nigel Neal's Halloween 3 script.
And the Shem Bitterman Halloween 5.
and Halloween: The Missing Years, and all the drafts of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2.
That's right. We don't have any draft of that.
Yeah, I'm because we were talking earlier. I met Tyler Main last month, and I guess I should have asked him even more about that, but he did, say to me that the original draft was really good. So
yeah, I mean, I guess anything beats not saying like more than 2 words in X-Men and then dying and not coming back and getting replaced by Liev Schreiber.
Yeah.
Okay, and so yeah, there's also a Jack in the Box with Michael's white mask for a head.
Jesus.
That reminded me of something.
Was it Child's Play 2 teaser?
I don't know anything about Child's Play 2. I've never seen it. But
well,
okay.
The poster is like Chucky holding scissors over like a Jack in the Box.
Oh, that's right. Right.
In the trailer, you have this Jack in the Box that's winding up, and then Chucky stomps on and he goes, "Sorry, Jack. Chucky's back."
Nobody wants a Charlie in the box. Okay, that was stupid. But so Kincaid pays Kane a visit at the children's hospital, and the magician makes a run for it, only for Kincaid to chase him down and cuff him. And elsewhere, Mr. Elliot, the headmaster of Hillcrest, has taken the students to town to buy costumes for the dance, only to discover the drugstore is a crime scene, with Sherry dead and Eddie missing. And he elects not to tell the girls, and we get a scene where Linda goes to open the hearse, which is parked right next to the store. Or is it Joanne who walks up to the hearse and she gets approached by... Linda goes to open the hearse. Elliot interrupts them, saying they're going somewhere else. And then Joanne also approaches it, but is grabbed from behind and basically assaulted by Chad as the shape watches from the interior of the hearse, breathing heavily.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is, the whole catching sight of a girl thing. So he completely forgets they heard about a copycat. And so we go to the sheriff's station. Kane is being booked, and Kincaid, needing a blood sample but not willing to wait for a warrant, accidentally, air quotes, trips Kane and makes his nose bleed, wiping up some of the blood with a handkerchief. And he just kind of hands it to Janet and goes, "Send that to the forensics lab to compare it with the crime scene samples." This guy is like every crappy cop movie character.
Yeah, like he smokes at the crime scene, as, like I said earlier. He walks in without a warrant. And he now breaks the suspect's nose to obtain DNA.
Yep, and they go, and then he meets with Kane in the holding room, and Kane, who insists he's innocent despite acting incredibly suspicious, claims he can escape anytime he wants, and he slips from the handcuffs. And so every scene, I'm only going to mention that one specifically, but almost every scene with this guy is him doing some dumb sleight of hand trick in the script going, ooh.
Yeah.
And so Kane figures out that Michael is on the loose and theorizes that he deliberately slowed down his bodily functions to a death-like state, something that he claims certain Hindus and Houdini could do to facilitate an escape. So he's that guy from Scanners who can control his heart rate. And he also offers to help Kincaid find Michael, saying it would be an opportunity to meet his idol face to face. And then Janet soon calls, saying that the prison guards forgot to remove Michael's ankle bracelet when they sent the body away, and that they now have a signal from it, and that it's moving. And we go to Hillcrest, where Joanne catches a glimpse of the shape watching her through the classroom window. Same scene as the original.
Mm-hmm. I
will have to say, when they did that homage in 2018, where Allison looks out the window and it's Laurie standing there, that was fucking hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
And Joanne gets another look at the shape through the school's gates, but he disappears as a bus passes by before her friends can see him. And then back at Middle Rock, a technician points out the location of the signal on a huge digital map of all of Illinois. Is this freaking like a prototype of the Manhattan prison from Escape from New York?
Yeah.
And so they pinpoint it down that he's in the woods 15 miles outside of Nauvoo. And so the warden ordered...
This is like a fucking Star Wars planet.
It does. And I think that was the city in Illinois where the Mormons set up shop for a while.
Yeah, and which is funny considering that 4 through 6 were filmed in Utah.
It does. It's 1 letter away. It's 2 letters away from being Naboo.
Yeah, I know.
And so the warden orders the coordinates downloaded into handheld devices and is eager to get after Michael. But Kincaid is suspicious, like, oh, this is all too easy. And so we go back to Hillcrest, where the custodian, Wally, rings the bell in the tower, and Joanne is in her bed, unable to sleep. The school dog, Lurch, sleeping on the floor next to her. I have never heard of a school having its own specific school-wide dog, but...
one that would even be allowed to go into students' rooms.
Yeah. And she thinks she sees a silhouette on the ceiling, but it turns out to just be Frank, who asks her to come outside and talk. And so in the woods, the warden, Kincaid, the guards, etc., they follow the signal, finding a pack of wolves feeding on Eddie's body, which has the ankle bracelet around its neck. Which, okay, that was kind of cool. And then back at Hillcrest, Frank and Joanne wander out into the campus, talking about the party, with Frank eventually asking Joanne out, all as the shape approaches, getting closer with each cut. Now, that was actually pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
There's some good suspense sequences in this. There's some good written stuff in this. I'd say the biggest problem is the cops.
Yeah, well, just like the overall story, I think, is the problem. But you can definitely see why he did get hired for H2O.
Yes, and that turned out much better.
Yeah, well, granted, I just relabeled this to an H2O draft in my own folder, just because it's like, okay, reading the other draft that we have, where it's a little closer to H2O, I'm like, okay, I consider those all rewrites of this draft. So this really is kind of like the first draft of H2O. It's just very different.
And so, yeah, they get jumped by Elliot, who drags them off as the shape is watching from a thicket. And elsewhere, Kincaid is in his messy apartment going through the Myers evidence before putting on some Super 8 Myers home movies. He falls.
Is it the alternate opening footage for Halloween Resurrection?
Oh, is it the fucking home video that Sherry was watching in Rob Zombie's Halloween when she killed herself?
No, I'm referring to the one where we see Judith Myers hula hooping. And they have baby Lori out, and then there's Michael Myers is standing off to the side being a weirdo.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about that alternate opening footage.
Okay, yeah, I know what you meant. I was just making a joke.
I know you were.
I was building on it. But so, yeah, he falls asleep, and then the shape appears and cuts his throat. But it was all just a dream. Yeah, this is definitely a Dimension direct-to-video movie.
Yeah.
But at least it's not the whole movie, unlike Hellraiser 5, Hellraiser 6, Hellraiser 7. Kincaid meets with Kane in the holding room, who again offers his help to find Michael. It's like, yeah, keep trying to be Hannibal Lecter, dude. They talk about how the baby from 6 has been adopted by an out-of-state family, and Kincaid is trying to locate him before Michael does. And I'm like, if this dumbass finds it, Michael will find it because of him.
Well, not only that, but this is our only time where this plot thread is ever brought up, and Kane's like, no, that's not what's going on here.
Oh, God, yeah.
And we kind of, I guess, being such a fanboy, he has a copy of Curtis Richards, or actually the guy's real name was Richard Curtis. They must have a copy of his novelization of the first movie, where he gave Michael an explicit boner.
Oh, God. Yeah, because Kane says, I don't believe Loomis's theory about pure evil and bloodlines. No, he sexually fixates on his victims and he stalks them as foreplay. I'm like, okay. But then he does some more sleight of hand and goes, maybe he really is the boogeyman. So he's not even consistent with his bullshit.
Mm-hmm. This is the dumbass guy that you see at the club who shouldn't be at the club, and he thinks he's still hot shit.
Yep. And so we then go back to Hillcrest, where Joanne is commiserating with Linda about getting caught by Elliot. And Linda leaves for a moment to get some nail polish, and the shape briefly appears and watches Joanne from the door before Linda comes back. And later, the girls are all doing laps in the swimming pool under the gym floor, and it comes up that Sharon let slip about Joanne getting caught the night before. This is all stuff that doesn't really matter. And Sharon is then forced to stay late in practice, and the shape attacks, forces her head under the water, drowning her to death, and then closes up the gym floor to hide the body. So it's the It's a Wonderful Life setup.
Mm-hmm. I would have loved I think I would have loved it because it would have been even more crueler if she was underwater and you have this underwater shot of her swimming and you see the doors actually closing in on her.
Oh, yeah. Or she's under the water and she gets a brief glimpse of Richard Nixon.
Yeah. But, she sees the doors closing up and Michael's face is just looking down at her, and she's tries swimming up, but she doesn't reach the doors in time.
Yeah.
That would have been cool, honestly.
And I thought this was setting up for something for the party later on.
It does, but nothing much.
It does, but not what I was hoping it would be.
Yeah.
But back at the sheriff's station, Janet informs Kincaid that Kane has made bail, even at the ridiculously high amount of $50,000.
They just pull out a sleeve of Monopoly money.
It's Monopoly money. It's the freaking counterfeit bill from Rush Hour 2. And the lab results on the blood samples won't come back until later that night, and Kincaid really doesn't want to let Kane go, even though he has to. And that's when the deputy walks in and informs him that the hearse has been found, and he gets an idea. He visits Kane in the holding room before he leaves and offers to take him along. And we then cut to Hillcrest on Halloween night, where the boys have been bussed over from Woodbury for the dance, and Wally the custodian chases a few of them off before they can egg one of the buildings, and one of them runs smack into the Shape, who just ignores them and instead follows Wally to the bell tower, so another reference. And Joey...
well, I was going to say, the scenes of Michael in the dormitory kind of remind me of when at college I was dressing up as Michael for Halloween, and I would have, I'd be like doing test days where I was just testing the costume out, and then people would be coming up to me asking if I could scare their roommates, so I would. So there was a bit where one girl had me go into her room because her roommate, who I actually ended up going on like a date with like a year later to Joker, she was napping, and she had her comforter up, and she was like listening to her phone like she had her earbuds in. And so what I did was I grabbed the comforter and I pull it back, and she pulls it forward, not looking down. I pull it back again. She does it again, and then I do it again, and then she looks up and, you know.
And then you went, die!
No, but that was one of my favorite times being Michael. Another time was on Halloween night. I was walking around campus, and I was like, damn it, I need to go check my student email. And so I walked into the arts building to go to our editing bays to get on computer to just look up my email. And there was another student, she was looking at some of the artwork, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to turn the corner so I don't freak her out. Of course, I do freak her out, and she goes, okay, please don't do it. And I'm just like walking around the corner. And then I didn't hear the person like calling out my name, but one of my classmates was like so terrified of my costume, she was like, she asked another classmate, like, who is that? And they're like, oh, that's dead name. You know, and I guess you can just go back to the other podcast and hear my old name if you want. But like the next day,
this tangent might get cut out anyways.
I know. But the next day she's like, that was you? Fuck you.
I'm just imagining the image of Michael Myers checking email.
Yeah.
But okay.
There was another guy in the editing bay. But now notice I'm animated about talking about this than I am about this script.
Yes, and so Joanne looks out the window, sees the Shape following Wally, gets distracted by Linda, who is in full Bride of Frankenstein getup, which is very strange that 2 movies in a row would have had the female best friend in a Bride of Frankenstein costume.
Yeah, but apparently her boyfriend didn't get the memo because he's wearing a Dracula costume.
Well, that might actually make sense because the bride actually doesn't like the monster, so... she's gonna go meet him in the cafeteria because they're avoiding the dance so they can get it on. And so, yeah, she basically it's like wishes Joanne well and then leaves her with Lurch. And Joanne looks out the window again, sees the Shape at the top of the bell tower, but gets distracted by Linda passing by, and the Shape is gone when she looks back, and she assumes it's just a Halloween prankster and starts drinking from shot bottles, which she just has.
Yeah. How did she get?
Yeah.
I mean, I know in H2O they the 2 guys do go into town to steal booze.
Yeah, they don't. They just show up in that scene. And so Linda and Jeff, they start to get on in the cafeteria.
I was going to say, they could have just Zappia could have just had a bit where they were taking some of the booze from Freeman's Drugs.
Yeah, that's true.
Because they're apparently smoking a joint there?
Yeah, I missed that. But okay, so they're getting on in the cafeteria. The Shape is watching from the kitchen. But she has to go to the bathroom, and there's this weird kind of suspense scene where one of the stall doors is locked, and then she does her business, and she completely misses that the locked stall is open when she leaves. So he left the kitchen, hid in the ladies' room, and then left while she was taking a piss.
What is he, a closeted trans woman?
It's like, I mean, we don't need a blow-by-blow account of where Michael Myers is at every moment.
Yeah, isn't it kind of the fun of it is not knowing?
And I'm like, what, is the fucking Kayako from Ju-on gonna pop out of the bathroom stall like she does in that movie. But no. Okay, so she returns to the cafeteria, not finding Jeff there. She thinks he's in the kitchen, and she approaches what she thinks is him, only for it to be the Shape wearing his Dracula cape. So a nice spin on the ghost sheet thing.
Yeah.
Just imagining, though, like the big, like 7-foot tall Tyler Mane Michael Myers wearing like a regular sized Dracula cape and trying to hide under it.
They'll never find me.
And so he picks her up, smashes her into the kitchen pot rack, and she sees Jeff's body stuffed into the fridge before the Shape hangs her from the pot rack by the head.
Yeah.
Sort of like what happens to the one girl in the Friday the 13th remake.
Yeah. Although that scene ended up being so dark, I could barely tell what was going on.
Well, same cinematographer as AVP Requiem. What do you expect?
Yeah, but we're also talking about the guy who is the cinematographer on the original and remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, so I do expect better.
Yeah, true, but it was post AVP Rec. But so at the Bridgestone Lagoon in the marshlands outside of town, Kincaid and Kane investigate the abandoned hearse, as well as the remains of the 2 morgue workers, which are left nearby.
We're talking about a lagoon, so are we sure Cthulhu Jack should be here and I should be gone right now?
No, we covered all those. But so they map out the locations of the drugstore, the wooded area where Eddie's body was found, the location of the hearse, and they discover it forms a perfect triangle.
It's kind of like how in the new movie, Michael's going in a straight line back to his house.
Or like him making the massive crop circle thorn in the ferry. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really funny. It reminds me of that scene in From Hell where from 3 murder sites they draw lines through it and decide that it's a pentagram.
It's kind of like in the Giant Claw where they make a pattern, they make a spiral pattern, or like a perfect pattern or something. I'm trying to remember what it is, but it's like these are all seemingly random locations, but they play connected dots with them.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's a perfect triangle. And he suggests that Michael is, and Kane's like, maybe Michael's nearby at a place where there'll be a lot of young people to stalk and kill. And it's where his sister went to school, Hillcrest. It's directly in the center of the triangle. This is some Da Vinci Code shit.
Yeah, and also, did we need Kane to tell us that, like, he's doing the detective's work for him. Like, guys, in real life, I mean, say what you will about cops and detectives and whatnot, but, like, if forensic files have taught me anything, it's that they will create, like, simulations or, like, programs that will, of, like, a mass attacker. And they'll be able to like kind of track where the killer is living or, you know, where the attacker is living just based on the vicinity of all these attacks.
And Michael's sister went to Hillcrest?
Yeah, it's a random revelation.
Which sister?
How would he, yeah, I know. How would he even know? He was 6 at the time.
Yeah, and it never comes up again, so that's some bullshit.
And not only that, but, okay, so this is a girls' boarding school, so was Judith off at boarding school, or was she, like, coming back on a bus every day, or a car, or whatever? Did she stop going to that school because we see her at home on Halloween night?
Or did Lori transfer there after the Haddonfield incident?
I don't know.
That would make more sense.
And it will make more sense considering what she ends up doing with H2O.
Yeah, she went there for, like, her last year of high school. But so back at the dorm, Lurch, who is laying down next to Joanne's bed, starts growling in the direction of the closet. And so she reaches down, pats his head, goes to check the closet, and after reaching in, without looking, turning off the light and closing the door, Joanne heads out to the bathroom, and Lurch follows her. In the gym, Chad, who is dressed as a condom. But okay, so he's looking for Sharon, but she isn't there, and she is there, but he doesn't know it. She's like a couple inches below his feet.
Yeah.
As he leaves, the freshman...
And she's also wet in anticipation.
But as he leaves, the freshman pranksters from earlier show up and chain the rear entrance to the gym while one enters through the front. And then back in her room, Joanne is in bed and notices that the closet is open again, and she reaches down to pet Lurch, only to see him walk in and growl, and then she looks down and sees that she has been petting the hair on top of the mask.
She's been petting Shatner.
This could either be, Shatner and his wig. Yeah, and so this, depending on how it was directed, could either be really creepy or really stupid.
Yeah.
And the Shape manages to grab her foot and slice open her thigh before she flees. And he actually gets on top of her, which is weird, so I guess Kane is right.
Yeah, I don't know. If you're going to play with the sexual aspect of Michael, really play it up, I guess.
Just have him go full frontal, wearing only the mask.
Yeah.
But no, she flees, hiding in one of the dorm rooms a bit before he finds her again. And so she runs down the stairs, bumping into Chad, who thinks this is all another Halloween prank, despite Joanne showing him her open wound. And he tries to act tough, but the Shape just smothers him to death with his condom costume. The Shape really likes to choke people in this.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the freshman prankster who snuck into the gym presses the pool opening button and snaps it off, running out quickly as his friends chain the front door shut. So the pool opens, and the students inside don't hear Joanne's yelling for help over the ruckus, which soon turns darker when they discover Sharon's corpse in the pool. I totally thought Michael was going to open the pool himself and then trap them in there and just get like a massive, like, double-digit body count.
That would have been awesome.
But no, it's just the same prank from Wonderful Life. And seeing the Shape approaching, Joanne bolts for the bell tower and runs up the stairs as he follows. And
reminds me of, I was going to say, this kind of reminds me of the ending of Final Exam.
Yeah, but no, so she bolts up the stairs, she tries to ring the bell to alert everybody, but it won't make any noise, and Joanne finds that Wally's corpse has been stuffed inside the bell and is keeping the clapper from moving. The clapper! Sorry. And she has to yank it out of there to ring it, and so the bell rings out right as the cops arrive at Hillcrest, with both Kincaid and Kane getting out of their car. At the top of the tower, Joanne keeps pulling the rope.
He's not cuffed?
Yeah, he's not cuffed. Well, he's not under arrest anymore. He got let out.
True. Oh yeah, you're right, but still.
And so Joanne keeps pulling the rope until a Shape emerges from the stairs, and it's Frank, who immediately falls forward dead with a knife in his back. God damn it, Frank.
He contribute much to this.
Nope. And then the Shape appears.
I was gonna say, unlike Crispin Glover, he probably would have been a dead fuck.
Yeah. And so, the Shape appears right behind him. Joanne pulls the knife out of his body. The Shape grabs her by the throat, and she just stabs him in the shoulder. But he just pulls him out, carries Joanne to the wall of the tower, leaning her over the edge, as Joanne is about to lose consciousness when Kincaid appears on the scene, and just shoots the Shape in the shoulder, and somehow he doesn't hit her, and she doesn't fall out, so it doesn't turn into the flashback from Halloween Kills. And so the Shape puts her down, moves for Kincaid, who just unloads the clip into him, making him fall from the tower, and it appears to be over, but when they look out the window, the Shape has disappeared.
Damn it, I missed my opportunity to say he Baldwined her.
Oh, God, stop. Okay, so the Shape has disappeared, so original movie again.
Yep.
Kincaid hands Joanne over to the paramedics, and we don't see her again for these last couple pages, which is when Janet approaches him with the news. She's pregnant. No. She just got a call that the tissue samples matched Kane's, and that a warrant is now out for his arrest. But before they can do anything, the cops see the Shape emerge from some nearby woodlands, and along with Kincaid, they fill him full of lead. And so Kincaid goes to check the bleeding still body, removes the mask, and finds that it's Kane. And then the magician goes, "Are you impressed? I made Michael Myers, ... disappear." And so he dies, and then it ends. So it's the beginning of Resurrection at the end of this.
Yeah. Somehow it's even dumber than Resurrection.
Yeah, it's pretty dumb. Although I will say this script, after having read those Halloween 666 scripts, is not as bad.
It isn't, but, because it's also not really addressing past continuity, whereas, like, with Halloween 666, they're still, they sort of address the whole Jamie stuff, but kind of in an insulting way.
Not really, even.
Yeah, I know.
But, yeah, it's just it's a nothing burger of a script, I think is the best term for it.
Yeah, and it's weird that, again, he was still hired to write the movie. But, not a bad writer on it. So.
Well, I guess it's because Bob Weinstein liked the script, and so he said, hey, you want to crack at this since Kevin Williamson really doesn't want to do it?
Mm-hmm.
But no, Kevin Williamson, pretty much what happened with this is that this got pushed to the wayside because Jamie Lee Curtis was already getting involved, and they didn't want to make a direct-to-video movie. And there's this whole, I'll give it a brief sort of synopsis here, just, keep it quick, is that Weinstein really, really, really wanted Kevin Williamson to write this because the Scream movies were the next big thing. But he didn't want to do it, and so Zappia wrote the first draft, which was called Blood Ties, which my understanding is it was basically this story. They just worked Laurie Strode into it as the headmistress of Woodcrest. Mm-hmm. I just combined the two academies from this. It's Hillcrest. And then from there, they finally talked Kevin Williamson into doing work on this basically by agreeing to fund Teaching Mrs. Tingle, which was his directorial debut. And so he did like a treatment which he used Blood Ties as the basis for that. And he took out the cop subplot. And then when he wasn't available to do the full draft, they brought Zappia back, who added a cop subplot back in. I doubt it was the same subplot. I'm guessing it was pretty different.
It also seems that the propellers I guess Michael gets rolled as not enough in this one where he gets split by propellers of a helicopter.
Ha, that's cool.
Yeah.
Or Last Boy Scouted.
Yeah. With Danielle Harris.
Yeah, it's true. Just imagine a Halloween 7 where he gets killed by a helicopter and then Laurie dances a jig.
Yeah.
And so he did his draft, and then he kind of stepped away right before they were going to go into production. And then Williamson got brought back mainly to do a dialogue polish, but he took the cop stuff out. And then when they went into production, they realized that there was gaps in the script as to, how Michael gets from where he is to Hillcrest. And so they brought in Matt Greenberg, who wrote the rest stop scene from H2O to kind of fill that gap. And so so that's how this became H2O.
Yeah. And then I think Zappia said he was also doing on-set rewrites.
Yeah, that's true. Possibly.
And we only have one draft of really Halloween H2O, I guess, if you want to think of it like that, which is when it was called The Revenge of Laurie Strode, and it's basically a rewrite of his Two Faces of Evil script, Blood Ties, Kevin Williamson's script treatment, and he's kind of combining elements together. Like, we finally have John and Laurie being under a pseudonym. It's starting to become more like the final film, but it still has like the characters from his Two Faces of Evil script. Molly takes the place of Joanne, and instead of surviving the bell tower, she's actually killed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then what else about it? The Janet Blake character, I think, also gets killed. So
it sounds like the cop subplot has a little bit more to it.
To a degree, at least. And then in the opening, instead of it being Marion, it's some character named Pamela getting attacked, and I still think it has the connection with Laurie Strode's files.
Wrong franchise for Pamela, guys.
And it also has the Joseph Gordon-Levitt character in the opening, so it is starting to become more like the final film.
So he definitely deserved his screenplay credit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it became H2O. H2O was a big success, and that was it for Halloween 7.
But they shot footage because of Mustafa Akkad's contract saying that Michael could not truly be killed. And so they shot footage the day after principal photography that would explain how Michael survived. And that's how we get the paramedic flashback footage in Halloween Resurrection.
Let's not talk about Resurrection too much more, shall we? But
we'll have to address it only because the Halloween 9 scripts that we have are a sequel to it.
Yeah. But yeah, well, we'll have to, we'll get to that. Okay, so like we said, Resurrection happened. It's stupid. It made the series into a big joke. And basically the only thing we really need to mention from that is that Busta Rhymes was in it. He's the rare black guy to survive a horror movie, and he kung fu's Michael Myers, tases him in the balls with an electrical cord, and sets him on fire. That's really all we need to cover from the movie, because he's the only thing that's relevant to these Halloween 9 scripts. Oh yeah, and the Myers house burns down.
You don't want to talk about the Sarah character?
Well, the writers clearly didn't.
Oh, okay.
Seriously, they thought bringing back Busta Rhymes was more important than bringing back the main character of the movie.
Not only that, but he also hasn't learned anything, it seems, in Retribution.
Yeah, so that's the next script we're going to be talking about. And just to give a little bit of context to this, and once again, this is being sourced from Taking Shape 2, which, if you're at all interested in this stuff, it's definitely a book to pick up because it's got a ton of scripts that it goes into that nobody out there has, so it's worth reading into. I have like one criticism of the book, which is that it's the same with all the Dustin McNeil books. He's really, really nice to every script, even the Phil Rosenberg Halloween 6, to the point where it's like, are you just not trying to piss anybody off?
Yeah.
And the only one he's like, that him and the co-writer are particularly critical of is the Etchison script for Halloween 4. And they go after it pretty hard to the point where I don't think they understand what happens in it. And of course, it's the only writer who's no longer around to be interviewed.
Yeah, when also it's one of the better unproduced Halloween scripts that we've read.
Yeah, for sure. Even with its flaws.
Yeah, just needed another writer or maybe, the direct, don't shit on it, you guys. Yeah.
And so before we get into the script we're going to talk about, after Resurrection, one of the first pitches that they had for a new Halloween was called H25. And I'm mentioning this for a reason. And it was a treatment that was written by Tim Day, who did a couple things for Dimension. Namely, he did rewrites on Hellraiser Hellseeker, as well as Hellraiser Deader, which, both those movies. And he had like a 3-picture deal with Dimension, and he pitched a couple things, including this. And the basic premise for it is that the Busta Rhymes character, Freddie Harris, makes a documentary about Michael Myers, and Michael breaks out. Apparently he gets imprisoned after Resurrection. He breaks out and just starts killing people at the premiere, and it was supposed to have a whole bunch of like previous characters from previous movies showing up, including Paul Rudd's Tommy Doyle. They all show up to the premiere. And this didn't move forward because it was designed as a 25th anniversary movie, and they probably knew they weren't going to make 2003.
Deadline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like Bob Weinstein apparently liked the treatment, but he made the suggestion of, well, the documentary thing might be too close to Scream 3, so...
Or might be too close to the movie you just fucking made.
Yeah, and so he said, maybe change it to having them write a book. But Tim Day didn't get to do any further work on it because he got let go from his deal for unclear reasons.
What, was he too scummy for the Weinsteins?
Ooh. But it seems like it seemed like his deal was just canceled, and it's not really explained why. But the reason why I bring that whole thing up is because the book concept carries over into Retribution.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Halloween Retribution is the first of 3 Halloween 9 ideas that actually made it to a full script form. They made it past a pitch, made it past a treatment. Mm-hmm. And it's dated, and the title of the script is actually Halloween 9 Retribution, and it's dated February 20th, 2004, and it's written by Judy Appleton and Jim Keeble, who are English, and they had written like a comedy script. They had written like a comedy movie that got like some buzz, and that's kind of how they got into it, is my understanding.
Kind of random, but yeah.
Yeah, apparently before they went to them, they actually approached Alan McElroy, but he didn't want to do it.
He changed his tune in a few years, but yeah. Both him and Dwight Little have said, yeah, you know what, we would do another one now.
No, but they were, but their movie they had done, the Most Fertile Man in Ireland got them representation, and they sold a romantic comedy script to New Line, and they were adapting The Fountainhead with Oliver Stone at this point. So they were like,
Jesus Christ.
I guess they were hot writers.
And libertarians?
And I got flipping back to different parts of the book. They got in to do it from they were working with a guy who had been working with the Akkads, and that's how they got the job. And my understanding with this is that the Akkads liked this script, but that the Dimension guys didn't.
Oh, well, that would explain why it's a good script.
And so, to just get right into it, the plot of this is that this kind of introduces the idea of a Halloween movie set in Smith's Grove, but in this version it's been abandoned, and there's some kids who kind of leave Haddonfield because Halloween has been banned there, and they decide to go have their party at a cabin, but they get stuck in snow in a blizzard, and they're right next to the abandoned hospital, so they go hole up in there, and Michael starts picking them off, and meanwhile you get the John Tate character from H2O, Josh Hartnett, who's investigating, trying to figure out what's going on. And so you have that as kind of like, he's kind of got like the Loomis subplot in this version.
Yeah, and for a first draft, this is actually, especially one that's a sequel to Halloween Resurrection, and one that's written by two writers who I can't think of anything else that they have written. This is actually a surprisingly really good script.
Yeah, honestly, it is. It actually reads really well. I've got quibbles with it here and there. There's like, we'll get into it. There's some kind of dumb scenes here and there, and there's certain things I just don't think work, but we'll get into it. So, so it opens on Halloween night, 1964, in Smiths Grove Sanitarium, where a young Dr. Hill, he's like a research assistant of Loomis, we find out. So this is 1 year after he kills his sister. He gets escorted to the cell of the 7-year-old Michael Myers, who they rather cornily say he was born on Halloween here.
Yeah, that's an unnecessary detail, especially when the script never delves into it, the fact that it's Michael's birthday, really. And then also the fact that I think canonically Michael is born on October 19th or October 27th. I don't know why I'm thinking of two different dates right now, but he's not born exactly on Halloween.
Well, they may have given two different dates at different times.
Or I could just be having a Mandela effect, but he's born in October, but his birthday is not on Halloween.
The Halloween birthday would have fit right in Halloween 6, though.
Yeah, it would, actually. That makes sense.
But, we did Halloween 6 last year. But no, and so they're like, he's led there by a nurse Spence, and we see glimpses of the other child patients being abused by orderlies. And Nurse Spence is dismissive of Loomis and Hill's attempts at helping Michael, saying he's just evil and can't be cured.
Yeah, I like this opening because of the subversion of the trope and also the contrast between the two characters. Because it's granted there's an age difference which isn't subverting the trope, but of the scene of where you have the young, bright-eyed, naive person, but in this case it's the doctor instead of a young nun.
Okay.
Which I like. Okay, so have you ever seen the movie Patrick?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, you have, the younger nurse who believes that, it would take too long for me to explain, but essentially, you have, somebody who's like, couldn't we help these people? And the older establishment characters, which in this trope would usually be the doctor. In this case, it's actually the nun.
Okay. But the thing about this opening is that this is not Smith's Grove.
Oh, yeah.
I know that in the past, especially at this time, mental health facilities weren't necessarily nice places, but this is only a few steps above, the mental hospital from Sweeney Todd.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole idea of, the staff being like, oh, he's just evil, because I thought the whole point of Loomis was that he thinks Michael is pure evil and nobody believes him.
And nobody else did, yeah.
Yeah.
So if this was another script, I would love this even more. I do like the scene as is, but in terms of the fact that when you take in the continuity of Halloween, it doesn't make much sense. Yeah, that's my only complaint with it, is just the fact that it's kind of revising history here.
Yep, and so Hill sends Spence out of the cell and tries to interact with the silent Michael, handing him a set of colored pencils and asking him to draw. And Michael just holds the blue pencil and stares at Hill before stabbing himself in the hand. And Hill screams for help and bangs at the door as Michael grabs his arm and won't let go. And Michael eventually releases him right before Spence and some orderlies let him out and proceed to beat Michael with lever straps and shock him with cattle prods. Wouldn't that fucking kill you if you got shocked with a cattle prod?
I'd have to look into that.
Those things are designed to shock through a thick hide of a cow.
Yeah, and also we're talking about a 7-year-old kid.
Yeah, and also we're getting a little bit of Rob Zombie's Smith's Grove here.
Yeah, but we don't have the white trashness of it.
No,
we don't have the racist. We don't have the racist orderly
or the rednecks.
Well, yeah, the racist orderly redneck.
Yeah, the rapists.
Yeah, who are insulting
Danny Trejo. Yeah. Looking at your papooses.
Yes, the racist line.
I'm on, boss.
So anyway,
yeah.
The name of Nurse Spence threw me off for a moment because I was like, Spence, isn't that a character from another Halloween script? But then I had to remember, oh no, it's a character from William Gibson's Alien 3. So I was getting my unproduced scripts mixed up in my head.
Yeah, the script that's been getting a lot of fucking traction lately, I might add.
Yeah.
Between a comic, an audio drama, and a novel.
Mm-hmm. And not to mention the video game Aliens Infestation from like a decade ago takes cues from it.
Oh, yeah, it uses the UPP, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. But, yeah, I really like the scene with little Michael in the cell, where he just stabs himself in the hand as being really creepy. I really like that. I don't need the whole Michael was abused by the hospital staff thing. And and what Dudy Appleton says in the interview in the book is that their whole idea was that Michael was already bad, but the experience at the hospital made him worse, which isn't, which I mean is conceptually okay, I guess, but it doesn't come off very well in the script.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that I think the Rob Zombie version nailed, actually.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of I'd say the hospital stuff is the best part of that movie.
Yeah. I love that movie overall, but yes, I can understand why people say they love the first half. I do like the second half, but, yeah, no, I can always, that's like the most inspired part because it's doing something new.
Yes. Also, it does something new in that Michael walks to Haddonfield.
Mm-hmm.
He kills Ken Faree and steals his clothes.
Yeah.
There's no Joe Grizzly in these scripts, sadly.
No.
But no, so, yeah, and so we see that he has Palmed Hills glasses, and a match cut occurs from Michael's eyes to those same eyes years later as an adult of 21 in 1978. And Spence speaks with Michael, saying that she's now retiring and that Loomis will be coming soon to take him to court. That's a nice little transition they did there, a nice little visual transition. And Michael, he appears to make a noise of some sort, and she just starts freaking out. She goes like, "What did you say? What did you say?" And like an idiot, she leans in, and Michael grabs her hand and holds it over her cattle prod while stabbing her with a crude knife fashioned from Hill's glasses, which this whole thing about him palming the glasses just makes me think of the pen from Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
Which I'll have to mention again in the next script. And he then slips the straitjacket with this implication he could always just do that, which is cool, and climbs into the drain in the cell's floor, escaping into the hospital. So this hospital has man-sized drains that connect every room.
Yeah, a little posterous here, like, that would encourage us to get out.
Yep.
Like, they just want me to escape at this point.
Like, yeah, they're in straitjackets, they're crazy, you're not going to be able to figure out the drains.
Well, crazy doesn't mean stupid.
Well, clearly these people have never seen Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
And he stops, he escapes into the hospital, he stops briefly to look at Judith's photo in his file, and slips back into the drain as an orderly walks in, who soon leaves, noticing all the patients have escaped their cells. Somehow. Was Michael just going up through every drain and opening every door? Also, needless to say, this does not match up with the added footage for the TV version of Halloween.
Oh, yeah.
And we then see bodies that are scattered around near the drains throughout the asylum from Michael stopping to take revenge as he escapes, eventually finding the iron grill at the outside of the building. And we then see him driving off in the station wagon from the first movie.
I was just going to say, like, Timmy took my pudding cup. He must die!
And so it then jumps ahead to 2004, where we are introduced to our main character, Leah, who is on a trip with her friend Tanya, Tanya's parents, and Tanya's boyfriend. I really should put a question mark there because he's kind of is and kind of isn't her boyfriend, Tim.
Oh, it's 25 years later, so 2003.
Well, I think they say 2004 at one point.
Yeah, we'll quibble over that later.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But they're going to their cabin in the woods near the now abandoned Smith's Grove, and they stop near the ruins so Tanya can go pee in the woods. And there's this whole conversation about how Tanya's family doesn't see much of Leah anymore, and there's a fake out where we think she's been killed, but it's just Tim being a dumbass and carrying her around. So yeah, Tim, always a dumbass in these movies if you're named Tim.
Yeah.
Only this guy doesn't do a Beavis and Butthead impersonation, so...
And also in the script for Halloween 6, he's written as more of a wigger. Then again, that didn't make sense in the first draft where he was actually dating a black woman, but...
Yeah. And so
he became more grunge as the time filming came, but yeah. Getting back to this Tim, not as fun as Tim Strode, in my opinion.
No, he was a better character. Mm-hmm. But they drive off again, and we then go to Antrim College in Newry, Illinois, where Freddie Harris, Busta Rhymes from Resurrection, it actually puts Busta Rhymes in parentheses next to the character's name.
Both scripts do that.
Yes. Because they do.
Do your Buster impression, and I'll play the role of the new interviewer here.
Okay, let me get to the page. Was it like page 15, 12?
It's page 12. Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to do a very good impersonation.
I've heard you do a decent one before.
There's a contract in fear. No, that's not it.
Is it like Marvel Mike Tyson lisp here? Contract in fear.
Trick or treat, motherfucker.
Trick or treat, motherfucker.
There's a contract in fear. It requires someone to be afraid of and someone to be afraid. Perpetrator and victim. Back in the day when you knew everyone on your street and we used to call these stranger murders. Today in our sprawling suburbs, lawless in the cities, and failing institutions, we are all strangers. It's harder to spot the outsider, the sociopath, the killer. We're all anonymous. We all wear a mask.
What impresses me about this book is that it's a serious look at the issues.
This is a time of great fear in our society.
Dialogue doesn't make any sense in its transition, but yeah. Okay, go ahead. But what are we afraid of, Freddy?
The terrorist, the serial killer, the deadly disease, or the spotty teenager who takes pop shotgun to math class? If we refuse to be afraid, we repudiate the contract. We remove the victim. We create the fear, and the fear is the problem. Yes, he's written a book about Michael Myers, which connects back to Weinstein's comments on that treatment. Mm-hmm. And it also kind of harkens forward to Rob Zombie's Halloween, too.
Well, even in Rob Zombie's first Halloween, Loomis has already written the book.
Yeah, but he's not... This is specifically the exploitative douchebag Loomis here.
Ah, yes. Yeah, in this case, Freddy hasn't really... He's still a douche, even though he kind of, at the end of Halloween Resurrection, doesn't he, he basically says, stop exploiting the whole Michael Myers story.
Yeah, he tries to shame the press at the end.
Yeah.
Which was something that, John Carpenter specifically called out as being stupid when he was, talking about how terrible Resurrection was.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't catch our previous episodes, that's the only Halloween sequel after 3 that Carpenter had seen at the time.
I wonder if he's even seen any of the other ones besides 2018 Kills, obviously.
Maybe since then he's I wouldn't be against him watching 4.
I'd love to pick his brain apart on the whole Thorn idea because I don't know, we might have some heated words about it.
Doesn't there very similar stuff in the novelization of the original?
Yeah, but the idea of there being an actual cult around it. Yeah. He might not be for that. And then I'd also we'd have to explain to him all the different intents going into it.
Yeah. Okay, so basically he wrote this book called Unmasking the Monster, which is all about him bragging about how much he killed Michael Myers. And he's during the book signing, he gets approached by an intense young man who keeps asking if Harris is sure Michael is dead. And there's a line where he says, it's all right here, chapters 8 through 12. So he wrote 4 whole chapters about Halloween Resurrection.
Yeah.
I wonder if this bears any resemblance to the actual events of the movie.
I know. Well, maybe it makes sense now that the whole kung fuing Michael bit, maybe that really didn't happen. That was all just something that he wrote for the book.
Yeah, maybe that would make sense.
It's so stupid.
But the young man is John Tate, Laurie Strode's son from H2O. Apparently he's been in Europe for some time and completely unreachable because
I thought he was in Pearl Harbor.
Yeah. Yeah, we thought you died and Ben Affleck raised your kid. I've actually seen Pearl Harbor, yes.
Yeah, I have too. My parents, we rented it when I was 5 years old, and I think we finished watching that. My parents were like, that was stupid.
That, or, he was off in Europe doing Penny Dreadful.
Yeah.
So John Tate in this is a werewolf. But it's he warns him, hey, my uncle never liked publicity, and just walks away.
And he also tells him, by the way, that the black guy at my private academy is a better rapper than you.
He got to be in Deep Blue Sea too.
And Mindhunters.
Oh God, I've never seen that.
I keep bringing it up, and you need to see it.
Okay,
one of his lines is literally "eeny meeny," I don't know. It's a dumb play on "eeny meeny miny mo." It's "eeny meeny miny mo." Who's the next motherfucker to go?
Okay, but moving on. Later that night, Harris is heading out to his car when he sees that his tire has been slashed, and he sees a campus police truck nearby, tries to flag it down for help, but he gets angry and starts throwing insults when the cop doesn't respond. And
fuck you, Toy Town Cop!
He is very much turning into his character from Resurrection here.
Mm-hmm.
You're not Michael Myers, I'm Michael Myers. And the truck does back up eventually, but Harris doesn't see that the cop's body is in the trunk, and it's being driven by a white masked figure. As Harris goes to get his spare out of the trunk, the driver steps out, and he turns around to find Michael Myers standing before him. And not believing that's him, Harris pulls a gun, only for Michael to knock it out of his hands and grab him by the neck. And Michael brings a knife up and stabs at Harris's chest, but he fights back, blocking the stab with a copy of his book. But that doesn't stop Michael, though, who stabs right through the book and into his body, right through the author photo on the cover, killing him. Justice. And so Michael pulls out the knife and leaves, and John soon arrives on the scene, finding Freddy's body, and he sees the police truck drive by and tries to flag it down, but he senses that Michael is driving as he stares into the tinted windows. But Michael just drives away, leaving John with Harris's body as the pages from the book flutter around in the wind. So, are we satisfied with that death scene?
I don't know. Compared to the Halloween Asylum death that he'll get, that we'll get to in a little bit, but I don't know. I do like his own vanity getting used against him, but again, it does go against the lesson that he learned.
But it was a stupid one, so.
True. And people tend to revert to their patterns after a while, especially when they get success from it.
And we then go to Haddonfield High School the next morning, where Principal Stokes and the female psychiatrist, Dr. Phillips, are arriving for work. And we learn
I was just joking about Columbine. I didn't say you had to take everyone at Haddonfield seriously.
Yeah, we get a fairly long scene of these two talking, and it for characters who don't really show up much after this.
Yeah, this would be a deleted scene.
Yeah, I feel like the introduction with them driving, the scene with the Clea and all them driving past the abandoned asylum would also be cut.
Or like given a different scene that introduces their characters. But yeah.
Yeah.
You could easily just transition from the 1978 footage to Freddy's narration.
Yeah. And so we learn here that Haddonfield High has very strict security due to the town's history, including a metal detector. So it's not just because of Columbine. They're super post-Columbine because of Michael Myers.
Oh yeah, well, this was kind of like the trend that some media was commenting on at the time. It's even funnier that school shootings, I say funny or not, is haha funny, but like school shootings became even more common because we haven't done anything about them. But like there's an episode of, speaking of Anthony Michael Hall, there's an episode of The Dead Zone that deals with this.
I saw the first season of that show. I don't know if that episode was in the first season.
It's not. It's like, if I wanted to say, it's like season 3 or 4.
Okay. But that actually wasn't a bad show for what it was.
Yeah, its ending gets a little muddled from what I remember.
Yeah, I've heard the last season is terrible.
From what I remember, it might have been like a case of different showrunners, and
well, it was a Michael Piller show, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, he died in 2005.
Oh yeah.
And
no, let's get back to where we are.
We're getting back to this, but basically, yeah, this was a common thing that media was talking about at the time about the teenagers and the effects of like being suspected of being a school shooter.
And they soon arrive in the classroom where we get reintroduced to Leah, Tanya, and Tim. There's like a weird, somewhat creepy guy named Daryl. They're learning about the Treaty of Versailles, and the students all get pulled for mandatory sessions with Phillips, and we learn during Leah's session she's been isolating herself from others lately.
But they weren't talking about fate?
No, they weren't.
Oh, okay. Good to know they also teach history at this school.
Yeah, the Treaty of Versailles is like earth, air, fire, water. Yeah, that's my contribution for the day. And like she's been isolating herself from others lately, and she expresses her frustration with the town's obsession with its past, saying it's making everyone crazy. Hi, diet version of Etchison's Halloween 4.
Mm-hmm. And Halloween 6.
Yeah. But our main kids leave school. They're accompanied by Jenny Shaw, the sheriff's daughter, uptight Phil Townsend, and jocks Brad and Andy. Teachers are handing out leaflets about Halloween safety, and the kids are all upset about how they can't have a Halloween party. It's October 30th when this is happening. And Brad and Daryl argue, and there's this whole thing where they think Daryl is like this psycho kid because he wears hunting pants and knows about guns. And
so why are they hanging out with him is my question.
Yeah, and it's like, they seem to think he's like a psychopath, but it's like not, it feels kind of bullshit.
Yeah, this is all dynamics that I think could be fixed in like a second draft.
Yeah, like, I mean, I can forgive some of this stuff in the first draft.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like this whole thing where it's like they think he's in danger of being a school shooter. And granted, he does make a joke about hacking people up with a machete. It's like, this isn't Friday the 13th, but whatever.
Yeah.
And we also learned that Tim and Jenny briefly had a thing, and Tanya is upset even though she and Tim were broken up, but they're together again, but they're not.
Again, this is all stuff that can be fixed easily. Yeah.
Just with a good dialogue polish even.
Mm-hmm.
And we then get a POV of a car driving through Haddonfield, showing how there are no Halloween decorations on the streets. And the car slows and seems to follow Leah as she walks home. And
I like I was going to say, I also like the contrast with the car radio, where like you hear a bunch of celebrations for Halloween going on.
Yep.
In other cities. I love that.
So of course Michael would be listening to that.
Yeah.
And so Leah senses the driver watching her and looks up, only to get jumped from behind by her pale, mute younger brother, Noah. So hi, Halloween 5.
Oh, hi, Halloween 5.
Hi, doggy.
I did not kill my stepmother. I did not. Oh, hi, Billy.
So someone needs to do an edit of the scene where he kills the dog in the original Halloween and just have it run up to him and just put in the dialogue, hi, doggy. And so we then see that Leah and Noah live with her religious grandparents, and her grandmother gives her crap about finding a condom in her room because they apparently give them away at the high school.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, they do.
That never happened to any of my high schools, but okay.
I guess this is still, keep in mind, like, when did you graduate?
2010.
Okay, it's 2014, but yeah, no, in high school they do, if you ask for it, they'll give you condoms.
Okay.
It's not like, okay, because in college they really do give that away, trust me.
Oh, yeah, they give that, yeah. And after the argument wraps up, Leah sits down to play chess with Noah, and we then go to Haddonfield Cemetery. Oh, before that, the grandmother's a total bitch. Like, she's like, too many strays around here. Yeah, and I also like, although I guess the scene hasn't occurred yet. We'll get to the grandfather, because I do like the joke there. I do wish, because this is something that you could also play up in a second draft, would be the religious element. Yeah, because that just, the grandparents are just gone after the next couple scenes. Yeah. But we then go to Haddonfield Cemetery that afternoon. And one thing that doesn't make sense here is Laurie Strode's tombstone. One, why would she want to be buried in Haddonfield is my question. Two, her death being listed as October 31st, 2002. So that would be the same night as Resurrection is taking place, when clearly her death had to be a few days before Halloween. Yeah, it felt like there was a time jump too in that movie. I always think that whenever I watch it, which is rare because it's Halloween Resurrection, I thought there would be a 4 to 7 day time gap. Yeah, and he's visiting his mother's grave. The warden offers to take a picture in front of the stone for money, and John just gives him a stare down. It's not going to be the meme of the guy giving the thumbs up at the tombstone. And so here we go to the dinner scene where Grandma's being a bitch. I like the grandfather saying grace, and then the phone rings. You just go, Jesus! Yeah, the phone rings. That's funny. Yeah, Leah gets a call from Tanya, who invites her to a party they've decided to throw at the cabin. And Leah is supposed to stay and watch Noah, where their grandparents are attending a prayer weekend, but Tanya encourages her to come anyways. And the grandmother is just a total bitch this entire scene. She's being needlessly mean to the mute kid. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, come on, I made a joke about Halloween 5, but it's not the same mute kid. Well, also, I assure you, these grandparents, their entire home video collection is nothing but pure flicks. Ugh. Well, not in 2004. Yeah, not until, there were still these religious movies coming out, but they were all direct-to-video crap. It's all VeggieTales. Yeah. It's all VeggieTales and the Prince of Egypt. Or Passion of the Christ. If you're Catholic. Well, that movie actually did get a lot of evangelical support from what I remember. But yeah, just because of how fucking brutal it is, but yeah. Yeah, basically, yeah. One thing I'll always respect that movie for is that Mel Gibson made a torture porn movie, essentially, and sold it to the religious community. Oh yeah, that's always, I'm you gotta respect the hustle. Yeah, you gotta respect how crazy he is at times. Yeah. But, okay, so the next morning, and it's Halloween, John is standing outside the burned remains of the Myers house when he gets stopped by Sheriff Shaw, who thinks he's just another weirdo. But he gets a bit friendlier when he finds out who John is and says he knew Laurie in high school. and he reassures John that he himself carried Michael's body out of the house, and that he's dead for sure, and also mentions that there's been talk of turning the lot into like a memorial garden. Yeah, that's going to take like 10 years to get through the local council.
Yeah.
And Shaw also warns John that the locals might not take too kindly to seeing him around town, and advises him to leave as soon as possible. Okay, so he knew Laurie in high school. No mention of Ben Tramer. Well, he would still be dead in the H2O timeline. That's right.
Yeah, he would be.
He's only MIA in the new one.
Yeah. Do you think he's Karen's father?
Possible.
Because it sounded like she didn't have sex with John McCain.
I was thinking Mothman prophecies, but okay.
Alex said John McCain, so now I have to say John McCain.
He does kind of look like John McCain. Okay, so later that morning, Leah is picked up by the others, who have a scheme put together where they park each other's cars outside of everyone's houses, and they take the Rotary Club van Tim borrowed from his father. Leah insists on taking Noah along, and Tim eventually acquiesces. And after getting stopped by the sheriff and Tim talking his way out of it as the rest of them hide, they drive out into the country and out to the woods, with Noah signing that Brad has a tiny penis after he makes fun of him. And the van breaks down in the woods, it begins to snow, and Tim and Tanya go off to have sex. There's a heavy breathing POV watching them. And while Noah wanders off and Leah goes to look for him, following the shape by mistake because they're both pale white, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And she runs into Daryl, who followed them out there and is hunting deer with a crossbow. Okay, he followed them out there. It doesn't explain how he got out there, I don't think.
Why not just have it be that he was out there regardless?
Yeah, because, I mean, if he had a car, that would have saved them some trouble.
True, yeah. Why not just have him along?
Yeah. That's true. But meanwhile, Tanya notices a body hastily buried in the leaves, and both her and Tim run for it. And the audience gets a glimpse of the body, a woman with a name tag reading Rita Jackson. And they all meet back up, with Brad not happy about Daryl being there. And the body disappears when Tanya and Tim try and show it to them. And so Noah turns back up, and Daryl fixes the van, but the snowfall soon turns into a blizzard, and they get stuck without any snow tires or snow chains. And they're right next to the old Smith's Grove building, though, and they approach it with a bell for the caretaker, Ms. R. Jackson, next to the door, and they ring it after singing the Outcast song and getting the lyrics wrong, but no one responds.
Oh, Jesus, I just realized this plot reminds me of Wrong Turn 4.
Okay, I have only seen Wrong Turn 1.
Wrong Turn 4, there's a blizzard and they get trapped in the asylum where all the inbreds grew up.
And that would have come out after the script, right?
Oh yeah, like that was 2011.
Aren't there fucking 7 Wrong Turn movies now?
I think there's an 8th one.
Because I know the reboot came out this year.
I think there's a sequel to the reboot.
Already?
Yeah.
Alan McElroy again.
Yeah, well now he's back in charge of it, so. Then again, the first movie was rewritten without him.
I've heard the reboot actually was surprisingly decent, so.
I'll give it a read. Oh, funny enough, again, he co-wrote, Left Behind, the movie.
Yeah, that's true. Some details got out about his Resident Evil script recently, and it did not sound good.
That's a unicorn in our community, folks, so we are hunting that one down.
Yeah, I might have to see if the Romero collection at the University of Pennsylvania will send it.
Oh, they have it?
Yeah, they have it along with like multiple other drafts of Romero's Resident Evil, but they're all like different dates, but they're almost all labeled first draft.
Okay. Wow, this is an interesting development I'm just finding out about now.
Yep, okay, so they enter the building with Tim ringing the bell repeatedly so Leah can find the caretaker's room. And Phil tries his cell phone, but he only just barely gets through to the local police. I almost left that bit out, but it becomes relevant later on.
Mm-hmm.
She gets there just as Michael slips down into the grate in the floor and watches her from there as she explores the room, finding pictures of Ms. Jackson, including one from 30 years before. And I think it has like a couple of the characters from the opening in it.
Yeah.
And finds the fuse box to turn the power on. And Leah hears some noise and finds Tim holding a door shut on Tanya, which has her really freaked out since there's no handle on the inside of the room.
Hold on, I just remembered something from earlier. There's a Donny Osmond reference. How many kids in the 2000s, how many teenagers were referencing Donny Osmond?
Maybe the school made them watch Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat?
Maybe.
Because they made me watch that in the music class.
Okay.
But I would have been like in 4th or 5th grade when that happened.
I mean, my high school, we performed it in drama club one year, but yeah. Anyway.
This weird tangent into, was it Andrew Lloyd Webber?
Yeah, well, it's just kind of like whenever like you have adults writing teenagers, but like they're modern day teenagers, and you make a reference that's like what, 70s.
It's like that one Blob remake script where the characters are all like 80s kids, even though it's set in 2004.
Yeah, or I think in Slender Man they make a grasshopper reference, and Red Letter Media was like, "Wait, is that a kung fu reference?"
I have no desire to watch the Slender Man movie. But okay, but all kinds of crap has been piled up in there, including an old chair with leather restraints on the arms and legs. So this is a storeroom, which for some reason has the setup of a cell with no handle on the inside.
Yeah.
Man, this place, OSHA would not like this place.
Yeah.
And then, is that the same as that chair they found in Halloween Resurrection?
Made in fucking Taiwan?
No, that was the corpses.
Ah, yeah.
Elsewhere, Noah explores the hallways, looking into cells and taking note of the drains in the floors.
Mm-hmm.
And back in Haddonfield, John is looking up information on Michael in the public library's computer, but gets no search results. And he's
a little late to be doing that. You had an entire day before. Jesus.
No, I'm just gonna stare at the fucking burned down Myers house.
Yeah.
And think about how I'm a werewolf now.
Or how you have to stop vampires when night falls.
Oh, I forgot about that movie. And he's approached by former sheriff Lee Brackett, writer of Empire Strikes Back, who tells him the town has deleted all of that stuff somehow.
Yeah.
He shows John a box full of newspaper clippings he's collected on the subject, one of which says that no DNA evidence was left behind in the fire when Michael was supposedly killed. And Brackett has a theory that he shares with John. Michael isn't insane, but he's out for revenge or retribution, and recommends John check all of the unsolved murders from the state of Illinois since 2001. Leaving out Chicago, because that'd be too long of a list to figure out who he's targeting.
Yeah.
When I first read this, I was surprised when Brackett showed up.
Yeah.
And that apparently was a thing that started at that 25 Years of Terror convention, where Charles Cyphers was there, and they were like, oh, you want to come back? And he was like, sure.
And finally, Halloween Kills fulfilled that wish.
Yep. That fucking scene where he first shows up, and because he's aged so much, they have to zoom in on his name tag.
Although he had the sideburns still.
Yeah, he did. Like, that's the first time I've seen Charles Cyphers in anything in a long time.
Yeah. When Alex and I were watching it, because they cut back to... They cut to Halloween 2 footage. We were like, I nearly did a spit take.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. When they say that... when they talk about Annie being murdered, it does a flashback to Halloween 2, and we see... Sheriff Brackett over Annie's body.
Oh shit! The timelines are converging.
I know, reality's bending. Yeah. And so when I was watching it, I was drinking my soda at that point. And I nearly did a spit take. I was like, and now it's we took footage.
Yeah, that movie reuses almost as much footage as a Toho Godzilla movie,
or Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2. Well, I mean, not that extent. It just repeats dialogue.
Or the old Mummy movies where like half the movie is reused footage.
Yeah.
But no, okay, so in Smith's Grove, in the dining hall, Tim schools Phil on how to ply girls with alcohol. And there's these two random girls present I didn't mention till now because I forgot about them, named Amy and Heather, who are completely useless characters. And
hey, Heather Mason's my favorite character in Silent Hill. Shut up.
I'm taking the subway home. Yeah, but Leah and Tanya are in a cell getting cleaned up for the night. And Tanya drops a brush. I wrote Tony. Drops a brush on the grate in the center. And Tim stops by to tell her they'll have a whole wing to themselves. And Tanya picks up the brush. And Leah finds Daryl and Noah playing chess in another cell. So yeah, there's a chess theme in this. Hey, Jake, if you're listening to this, you're going to love this script. It stops Noah from taking a joint. And we get more dialogue about Daryl dislikes all the popular people. He's got a giant chip on his shoulder. But he leaves without making the pass at Leah, so I guess he's a decent guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then the teens all go about their evenings with Phil unsuccessfully coming on to Amy, Leah showering, Tanya listening to music, Andy and Heather making out, etc. All shown from a POV in the drains. It's described as like it's a camera movement where it's going from drain to drain and looking up. That's a pretty cool shot there.
Mm-hmm.
And Brad and Jenny are flirting while making burgers, and the butcher's knife, historical inaccuracy if you're Two Faces of Evil, they're using to slice buns goes missing.
Oh, and we don't need another. We already had a character who was obsessed with talking about his love of food in the last movie. We don't need it again, you guys.
Oh, God, that's right. The guy who thinks Michael Myers is crazy because of the food he ate.
And who dedicated the movie to his agent or his manager in an interview, I think. Like his mentor. I'm like, oh no.
That's almost as bad as Ridley Scott dedicating Exodus Gods and Kings to Tony. I mean, that's bad enough to make you come back from the dead and jump off the bridge all over again.
Ooh, guys, just know I did not say that. That was him this time.
Hey, that's like a fucking 10-year-old thing now. You made the multiple Baldwin jokes during Two Faces of Evil, so.
It's not even been a week yet when we're recording this.
Yes. It won't even be that much longer when we put this up if I can get it up on Halloween.
Yeah, you might have to cut some corners, like using live ammunition to get this done.
Just cut it all together. Don't even edit out the dead air. Like, fuck it, it's going up.
Why? Fuck it! Fucking thing sucks!
Yep, and so that's when the power goes out.
We leave you with Sting and a cut off his new album. Take it away.
I will kill him! Fucking Dune. But Brad, Jenny, and Phil head to the caretaker's room to switch it back on, and they hear a scream, and they find Tim with his hand pinned to a door with a knife. They didn't see who did in the dark, but Brad and everybody but Leah all assume it was Daryl. And they all track Daryl down to the room he's staying in. Phil snatches his crossbow away, and the rest of them slam the door shut, locking him in.
Hold on just a second. Yeah, go ahead.
And so elsewhere, John has tracked down the lead using Harris's book, which mentions Dr. Hill as having been Loomis's research assistant. And there's
we got a Daryl with a crossbow reference in here. We've not made one Walking Dead reference.
I have put most of Walking Dead out of my brain. I don't need it taking up the space.
I haven't even seen that show in years, but I remember Daryl having a cross. Granted, different spelling, but yeah. I'm surprised we didn't make a Daryl reference here.
It's been so long since I've even put any thought into that show. Like, yeah. I gave up after season 5, which was like 3 whole seasons before most people gave up.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so yeah. Yeah, basically no one answers the door, but a neighbor shows up and explains that Hill always leaves the TV on too loud. And he helps John inside, and they find Dr. Hill pinned to his chair with a knife. Well, at least he didn't get his head cut off and then eat a woman out with it. Reanimator. And John hears a sound upstairs, but it's just a crow that's gotten into the house through an open window. He finds pictures of child patients being experimented on and leaves, despite the neighbors' protests. Go like, you can't leave, you gotta talk to the cops. He's like, nope. And so from there, we go back to Smith's Grove. Tanya decides to play, oh god, this scene. Tanya decides to play a sex game with the wounded Tim, blindfolding him and restraining him in that special chair. And she leaves to go get a beer, saying that she's going to pour it all over him and then lick it off, but runs right into Michael, who holds her mouth shut and slits her throat. And, like, the blood, like, sprays on Tim, and he's like, brewski. This is a scene. This is almost exactly a scene from American Pie 2.
Well, American Pie actor was in Resurrection.
Yes, one of the leads, actually. But no, American Pie 2, there's a scene where Stifler thinks he's getting champagne poured on him, but it's really John Cho peeing on him from the balcony above.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, ooh, baby, how'd you get so nice and warm? I can taste the bubbles. It's that scene.
Yeah.
So Sean William Scott playing Tim. That would immediately make the character more fun. He did do Final Destination.
And he was in a movie with Paul Rudd.
Yes, true. But so Michael does this thing where he holds her, he then takes her dead arm, runs the fingers down Tim's body, and stuffs it in his mouth to keep him quiet when Michael starts cutting him. This scene is a little too Friday the 13th.
Maybe not as ridiculous as, what was it, the beer bong death in the Rosenberg and other draft of Halloween 6.
Oh god, yeah, was that Rosenberg or was it the
I thought it was both of them. I thought it was in both of theirs.
I don't know. I can't remember.
It wasn't. Yeah, neither do I.
From the writers of Cats and Dogs, the other draft. But so Noah seems to sense what's happening, and this whole psychic connection never comes up again, and goes to get Daryl, with Leah showing up at his room as well. And they head to Tim's room and find his body, and Daryl wants to tell the rest immediately, but Leah and Noah don't want him found there, as the others are already suspicious of him, so he goes and hides. Maybe you should have left him locked up. That would prove his innocence.
Yeah.
But once again, something you could fix in the second draft.
Oh, yeah.
And Leah brings the rest of them to Tim's body, and Phil and Brad at least still think that Daryl is responsible, despite Leah's pleas. And they find Tanya's bloody bandana and go looking for her, only for the caretaker's body to come crashing through the skylight. Sorry, Ms. Jackson. And they find Daryl's room empty, and Brad tells the girls to shut themselves up for their safety. And Leah just shoves Noah in there with them and closes the door and meets up with Daryl. Stupid thing about this scene, they are only locked from the inside. You can still open the door from the outside.
Yeah.
Because of the way the doors are described as working. Elsewhere, John tracks down another unsolved murder, finding the deceased man's wife. He was killed by an intruder in their home, but she mentions that Smith's Grove killed him even before that. And this gives John the idea that maybe Michael is considering Smith's Grove as his home now and has gone back there, which is actually a smart idea because as Dudy Appleton mentions in the interview in the book, Michael spent more of his life at Smith's Grove than he did in Haddonfield.
Yeah.
And this
I like that development.
Yeah, I like that. That's the way they get to it is a little weird because the whole idea that Michael Myers is out for revenge against these people who abused him in the hospital is really just kind of a throwaway thing that we get these two scenes about and then nothing else.
Yeah, this could easily be fixed in the second draft.
Yeah, it's a little difficult to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
And so he calls the county police, who have the building in their jurisdiction, so they do remember that's pretty far away from Haddonfield in this one.
Mm-hmm.
And they say that no one can get up there on account of the blizzard. And the police officer even mentions the kid stuck up there, and this just makes me think of that cop from The Shining that Dick Halloran calls up.
Yeah, I was thinking about The Shining as well with the whole snow trap.
Yep, and the police of course they don't believe. This causes John to just start talking about Michael Myers, and of course they don't believe him, thinking him just another prankster. And he calls up Brackett instead, attempting to enlist him. And Brackett, flashing back to scenes from the original movie, removes his gun from a lockbox and sets out. And he takes his badge out too. That's a nice little scene. Brackett's used really well in this, I think.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, definitely, especially compared to the next script.
Oh, yeah. And even compared to Halloween Kills. But Halloween Kills had enough characters in it as it was, so.
Yeah.
Brackett visits Sheriff Shaw at the police station, and he mentions that he has a daughter, too, as a means of trying to relate to Brackett. And then he snatches some keys and steals a police cruiser heading off to Smith's Grove, so he doesn't have a car?
Yeah, I think... you want to take the gun or something? Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say maybe it's playing into the whole thing, because I think he pins his badge on when he finally gets there.
True. I guess he just wanted to go in a cop car. However, guess what? I would assume at this point that there's a GPS system in cop cars.
Yeah.
And if you were to get pulled over, you're going to get your ass hauled to jail, and you might become Murphy Pendleton.
That's a good one. All right, so back at the abandoned hospital, Daryl and Leah go looking for weapons in the kitchen, finding nothing. And Daryl tries to teach her how to fight back against someone with a knife, which was a nice little scene. And they then check the storage room from earlier of Daryl finding an axe and handing his hunting knife over to Leah. And they also find more old photos of restrained children, so really creepy shit. And this is where it kind of starts getting into, like Session 9 territory with the pictures and the recordings and stuff that we see.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Like all this is missing is David Caruso going, fuck you. And so back in the cell where the girls and Noah were shut in, they see Tanya's face at the window, the window in the door, but she looks bad and doesn't respond to their voices. The door then swings open, revealing Tanya's half-naked corpse as it falls into the room, which in turn reveals Michael, who is standing right there after propping her up. And
it'd been funny if Michael was ventriloquizing her, you know.
Yeah. And so the girls scream at alerting the rest of the teens in the hospital, and they run off, and they just run right past Michael Myers, and he's just like, not worth the effort.
Yeah, I'll get him.
And they're leaving Noah behind, and Michael corners the young boy in the cell, who just curls up and cries in fear and probably pisses himself. And surprisingly, Michael just leaves him without even attacking him, and then Noah runs off.
Mm-hmm.
And Brad, Andy, and Phil come running, with Phil tripping over Tanya's corpse and dropping the crossbow, which Brad then picks up. A shadow approaches them from the darkness, and Brad almost shoots, but it's just Jenny and the rest of the girls, with Jenny collapsing and crying into Phil's arms. She then sees Michael about to attack Phil from behind and gasps out a warning, only for Phil to turn her around and let her take the knife for him. That was funny.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit! Shh. And Brad fires a crossbow and misses, and they all flee to the entrance where they run to Daryl and Leah. And Phil and the rest want to leave immediately, but Daryl and Leah want them to wait until they find Noah. However, they just start the van and drive off anyways, leaving Daryl and Leah behind. And they then see Michael's face peeking out the back window of the van, kind of like the ending of that one draft of Halloween 6.
Yeah.
And Daryl chases after them to warn them, but the van speeds away. Yeah, but Michael then kills Phil, making the van crash. And
that reminds me of two things. One, Jason lives.
Yes.
2, assault on Precinct 13.
Yes. And so he presumably kills the rest of the passengers as well, although we don't actually see him do that.
Yeah, I wish that they had gotten other death sequences, but this maybe it would have been too long to do. I don't know.
It's a little weird the way it's described, because it's described like he just walks past them, kills Phil, crashes the van, and then I guess he just goes on like a triage and just starts stabbing everybody in the back.
Yeah, that's something that could, like I said, could be refined in the second draft.
Yep. And then Michael has a mysterious object in his hand as he leaves the van. And we go to John, who is speeding down the forest road in the blizzard, thinking about Loomis's speech from the original movie, which I made sure to write in my notes. He wasn't even alive, let alone present. I, too, have watched my copy of Halloween 1978.
Well, again, it's kind of like, it's even more ridiculous than Ricky remembering stuff in Silent Night, Deadly Night that he'd be too young to remember.
And he stops to check the road signs when Brackett catches up with him in the police car, pinning on his old sheriff's badge for the upcoming confrontation. And they head the rest of the way on foot, missing the wrecked van as they go, because it went off the road and down the slope a little bit, I think is what happened. Back at Smith's Grove, Daryl and Leah find Noah hiding in the corridors and come upon a fresh blood trail and follow it in search of Jenny. And they follow the trail to a door that has been bolted from the inside, but Daryl is able to break the rusty bolt fairly easily. And they find themselves in a room with 2 empty swimming pools in it. As Leah approaches one of them, Jenny lunges out and grabs her for a bit of a jump scare. And they move the wounded girl to the storeroom. She needs medical attention, but they can't get her out of there in the blizzard. So Daryl offers to stand guard during the night and try to head into town on foot in the morning. And so later that night, Noah finds a box in the storeroom with pictures of Michael as a boy, as well as a film reel of an interview of Dr. Loomis. Leah plays it, and it shows a vacant, expressionless young Michael who doesn't answer any of Loomis's questions. And the film freaks out Noah to the point that he leaves the room to stand watch of Daryl, who lets him hold the axe while he goes back to the hunting knife.
I like his response. I don't like scary movies either.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And this is kind of a thing that comes back in the next script a little bit, but in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And sometime later, as they are in danger of falling asleep, a knife briefly comes down and just...
there's a misspelling here on Dr. Loomis. It says Dr. D. Loomis.
Oh, that's right.
Whatever, typo. Oh, I think I know why the typo was made. It's because D is right next to S on the keyboard.
Yep. His real name is Dr. David Sam Lewis. It's like how Bruce Banner's full name is Robert Bruce Banner.
I get it.
But no, a knife briefly comes down and just barely nicks Daryl before disappearing into the darkness. And so Daryl checks a ways down the corridor, finding Phil's severed head has been turned into a jack-o'-lantern. So, hi, 2018.
Yeah, I love that moment.
Yeah, that's cool. It's cool here, it's cool there.
Mm-hmm.
And he turns around and spots Michael just standing there watching from the other end of the corridor past Noah. And the two of them go after him, only for him to duck into a cell. And Daryl goes in after him, shutting the door so Michael can't escape. However, he isn't there and sneaks up behind Noah and lifts him up by the throat. And Noah hits him on the head with the side of the axe, getting Michael to let him go. He then opens the cell door and ducks inside of Daryl. And Michael just watches through the window hatch for a moment and then heads back down the corridor to go after the girl. So yeah, I guess he ducked into the drain and then came out another drain.
Mm-hmm.
Or he has the Friday the 13th Part 8 teleportation powers.
No, it's like Mario going down the drain. He steps over the drain, and then you have like the animation sound effect.
He took a shortcut through the Mushroom Kingdom.
Yeah.
Yeah, he met Dennis Hopper. And the girls are both asleep in the storeroom, and Jenny awakes to see a figure sitting at the end of the bed in Daryl's jacket, which he took off and gave to Leah earlier. And Leah spots that's actually Michael in the jacket, but not before he starts strangling Jenny. And Daryl manages to cut a big enough hole in the cell door with the axe for Noah to get his hand through and open it, and they run back to the storeroom. Leah hits Michael over the head with a whole-ass filing cabinet and saves Jenny. Daryl and Noah arrive, and Daryl rushes Michael with the axe, only to get impaled on Michael's knife. And he attempts to strangle Michael, but bleeds out and dies before he can. That was pretty cool.
Oh,
like
yeah.
The idea that someone actually tries to put their hands around Michael Myers' throat.
Mm-hmm.
And so Leah, Noah, and Jenny rush out of the room and shut the door, only for Michael to appear behind them in the hallway, so they run back in and barricade the door. This is turning into Scooby-Doo. Leah finds the coroner's photo of Judith Myers, and notices that they both look a lot alike, except for Judith's shorter hair.
Which doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, because I remember Judith having long hair.
She has very long hair. Right before, as they put it in Halloween Kills, he stabs her right in the tits.
Yeah.
that was probably one of my favorite lines in Halloween Kills.
Yeah.
Stabbed his sister right in the tits.
What was I going to say, though? It's on the tip of my tongue. I can't remember.
Should I keep going?
Yeah, I guess.
But yeah, so Leah quickly cuts her hair short and uses her resemblance to Judith to lure Michael away from the others, who run off in
Friday
the opposite...
13th, part 2.
Yes, part 4.
And part 2.
Yeah, a little bit, but the hair cutting is more 4.
Yeah, you're right.
And they run off in the opposite direction.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say now. I'm glad we don't get that moment in Resurrection where he just walks through the door.
Which scene was... no, it's Resurrection. I don't care, so I don't need to remember.
It's when he's hunting down Laurie and he walks into her room.
I don't care. But I do like the fact that they're bringing Judith up in this script.
Yeah.
I think that's actually... I think that's kind of like one of those things that's kind of not been mined very much.
Yeah, the fact that there's obviously like this sexual thing going on with him killing Judith.
And turning to look at the knife as he stabs her with it.
Oh, yeah.
But meanwhile, John and Brackett have arrived at Smith's Grove and burst in the door, only for John to trip over Phil's head on the ground, which I think it rolls down the hallway at them. It's like that fucking severed head ghost from Fatal Frame, the first one, that rolls down the stairs at you the first time you see it.
Yeah.
And
Daryl. One of Daryl's last lines was "Die, motherfucker," and I just couldn't help remember, but the song
from Office Space.
Yeah, from by the Ghetto Boys.
Yes.
Yeah, the song Still. That's the title of the song.
Yeah, so I know. And so the fact that Michael is definitely there and runs off down the corridor when they hear voices. Yeah, I actually have that CD, so. And Leah runs to a door marked no admittance and bolts it right behind her as Michael catches up. And she finds herself in the hallway outside the pool area from before. I just completely lost my place in the... Okay, next to the door, they broke down. Michael breaks through the old bolt after a while and heads into the pool room, and Leah uses an old flashlight to lure him out onto the knockdown door, which he has placed over the pool like a bridge, and kicks it out from underneath him, making him fall onto the hard concrete. And this whole sequence here is written out in very detailed fashion, which made it a bitch to take notes on.
Mm-hmm.
And keeping her eye...
I was going to say, the whole pool bit coming up here kind of reminds me of 2007 with the backyard pool.
That's right, yeah. But keeping her eyes on Michael the whole time, she heads down the wheelchair ramp into the pool to make sure he's really dead. No, he's either dead or he slowed his heartbeat down like a Hindu mystic.
Mm-hmm.
And Leah grabs the knife and goes to check his pulse. So he's Neo from the Matrix. That's when he grabs her arm. And she gets him to let go by cutting him with the knife, but he stands up in between her and the ramp, forcing her to use the rusty ladder in the other direction. And Michael tries to grab her off the ladder, but she kicks him away, only for the ladder to break under her. She then distracts Michael with the knife and brains him with the flashlight, making a run for it. But she trips on the wet tiles and drops the knife, but still manages to get away, running out the door marked fire exit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was insanely detailed, that bit. Now, directed well, it could be pretty cool, but taking notes on the script was a little bit of a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And John and Brackett are drawn to the storeroom by the sounds of the film playing again, and they look in and they see it's the corpse of Tanya has been strapped into the restraining chair. And when they open the door, an axe swings down, so it was a trap that was set by Noah. And Jenny comes out of hiding and confirms that Michael is the one after them. And Noah unscrews the drain on the floor with Jenny explaining that Michael hides down there. How they know that, I'm not sure. Because they never see him using those before this point, unless it's that psychic connection cropping up again. Good thing Loomis isn't here, because he'd be grabbing Noah and going, "Tell me!"
Yeah. You know where he is!
And so John takes the axe and the flashlight and heads down the tunnels to look for Michael, leaving Brackett with the kids. And elsewhere, Leah runs down the stairs to the exit, but drops the flashlight down to the bottom. She heads down there to get it, finding herself in the dead end of the basement. And Michael appears standing next to the exit, but Leah tries to run past him, only for Michael to pick her up and throw her over the rail, back down to the basement. Her screams get the attention of Brackett, Noah, and Jenny, with the latter saying they should head for the pool area. How she knew that Leah ran in that direction, I don't know. Once again, first draft. And so back in the basement, the injured Leah tries to crawl away from the slowly approaching Michael, but there's nowhere to go. And he catches up to her and takes her belt, wrapping it around her neck to strangle her with. As she chokes out, a face appears in the drain below her. John, who quickly tries to unscrew the lid. Bit of a coincidence, but that's one I can let pass. And the whole strangulation thing is it's another script where he strangles a bit more, and this scene specifically is really brutal. Like, he's specifically doing this to be nastier.
Oh yeah, and the describing of the eyes bulging and whatnot, yeah. I really like.
Like, it's giving him a bit more of a sadistic edge.
Yeah.
And so he manages to get it open and hands the screwdriver to Leah through the gaps, which she uses to stab Michael in the eye and get free of the belt. John helps her down to the tunnels, and they head off in search of an exit. And as Noah and Jenny lead Brackett through the pool area towards the emergency stairs, Michael's slumped over body stirs, pulling the screwdriver out of his eye. And they come to the bottom of the stairs and hear sounds coming from the grate. Brackett lifts it up and looks down, seeing Michael walking away. He falls down into the tunnel because he's so shocked, then gets up and pulls his gun on Michael. However, it's rusted and old, so it jams when he tries to fire. And Michael just leaves the broken man where he is. And there's this great line in the description where it says, he's already killed this guy, he's just not dead, or something like that.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that was great. And that's a great moment for the Brackett character as well.
Oh, yeah.
Especially compared to what we get next.
Well, I was also going to say, Jenny just kind of disappears from the script, but she's clearly still alive.
And she's still wounded?
Yeah. Whatever, you could verify that in the second draft, but I actually liked having her character survive.
Yeah, that was cool. I like having multiple survivors in a slasher movie because it's subverting an actual trope.
Yeah.
And Michael catches up to John and Leah after John offers to let her buy him a drink afterwards. I'm like, dude, she's still in high school.
Yeah, I know.
Even if you're Josh Hartnett.
I was going to say Harvey Weinstein really liked that bit.
Yeah, I bet he did. And John attacks him with the axe to give her time to run. And he ends up hitting the wall and falling over, with Michael stabbing him and forcing his face down into the water on the bottom of the tunnel before heading off after Leah. Mental hospital? Shoving someone's face into a pool of water? Has M. Night Shyamalan read this? She soon comes to a fork in the tunnel and leaves one of her shoes down the wider tunnel, while she hides in the narrower one, trying to fool Michael into going the wrong way. But it doesn't quite work, and he comes after her, forcing her to move even further down the ever-narrowing tunnel. And he gets close enough to swing the knife at her face, but John shows up and drags him out of the tunnel feet first, which is just a comical image. Like he's gonna pick him up and do the freaking hammer throw from Conan the Destroyer.
Oh, another bracket bit I liked was when they found Tanya's face. He said Annie.
Yeah, that was good. I forgot to take notes on that.
Yeah, like he's having PTSD.
Yeah. Leah stomps on Michael's hand to make him let go of the knife, and there's actually like mention of the scar on his hand from where he stabbed himself in the opening, which that was cool. And I bet it's not in any of the other movies. And then John hits him on the back of the head with the flat of the axe, seemingly knocking him out. And Leah helps the wounded John down the tunnel, finding a hatch in the ceiling that leads him outside the hospital in the first light of dawn. The blizzard has ended, but they keep moving, struggling through the snow before losing their footing and following down a slope. John slamming into a tree and getting knocked the fuck out for a minute. And Leah continues down the slope, not noticing the fucking Ninja Turtles also sliding down the fucking mountain.
God damn it.
But she also doesn't notice the two small black holes in the slope, which are Michael's eye holes. All that's visible of him before he rises from the snowbank. That is such a cool image.
Yeah, I know.
Like,
we're never going to get that scene in any movie because they probably won't ever do one that takes place in a snowfall. But goddamn it, I love that bit.
It's like a great inverse of him coming out of the black.
Mm-hmm.
Leah doesn't know he's there, but Noah appears from a distance, managing to scream and alert her. Also, I should say, hey, Friday the 13th fans, you want to get a slasher movie in the snow because you won't shut up about it. Here you go. They struggle with Michael pushing the blade towards Leah's throat before John comes to the rescue and throws the axe at Michael. Whoosh! I don't know why that's so funny to me, but it is.
Yeah.
Burying it in his chest, and he drops the butcher knife. They all climb up the hill, and Michael stands up and takes the axe out, only to hear a cracking sound. So yeah, Noah has something of a voice now, I should mention.
That reminds me of Joey in Dream Warriors.
Yeah, exactly. Only to hear a cracking... He's not as much of a dumbass as Joey is.
Yeah.
Only to hear a cracking sound. He's standing on top of a frozen lake and falls in when the ice breaks. Oopsie. Is this the snowman now? You don't want to watch that movie if you haven't.
I figured.
John, Leah, and Noah head down the slope, and John picks up the knife, checking the hole in the ice just to make sure. But Michael's body floats back up under the ice, his mask pressing against it, which is another cool image.
Mm-hmm.
And Brackett appears and looks down at Michael under the ice, only for him to punch up from under the ice and grab onto him. And then John jumps at Michael and shoves the knife into his body. He grabs Michael's throat and gets dragged down into the lake with him. But then John floats back up to the surface soon after, clutching the mask in his hands. And as he's sitting there shivering, probably about to die from hypothermia, Leah is telling him, just leave it, it's evil. But he can't stop staring into its eye holes. And he looks into it. There's a shot of the eye holes, a shot of his eyes kind of dark. And then it fades back to some of the dialogue from the intro scene in Smith's Grove. And that's where it ends. Honestly, not bad.
Yeah, actually, considering the criteria I listed earlier of all the things that I thought would work against it, this is actually a very good first draft, especially for, again, having to follow up Resurrection.
Yeah, I mean, Resurrection is one of those things where they kind of wrote themselves into a hole, where it's like, how do we deal with this? And they murder Busta Rhymes, and then they move right past it. And honestly, it's a good sequel to H2O as well.
Yeah.
Getting John Tate back in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would just need a second draft, and I would love to have read if they had ever done one.
I don't think they did. I think they just did this.
Yeah, which is a shame, because they clearly had an understanding of what to go for.
Yes, it's not clear exactly what happened, but this was one of the times where on HalloweenMovies.net they did announce that a Halloween 9 was in the works, but they didn't say anything too specific about it, but it would have been related to this script based on the time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like the Akkads were really into this script, but the Dimension guys didn't like it. And at one point, there was like the Dimension guys going like, they were already working on the full draft, but then they wanted them to go back and do work on the treatment.
Yeah.
And they were like, but we were already working on the script. And then Mustafa Akkad was just like, keep working on it like this.
Yeah, that was a smart move on his part.
And so they did it, and there was a bunch of friction with the Dimension guys because the Dimension guys apparently didn't like it. They tried not to pay them for it, and they eventually did get paid, but it wasn't a whole lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, according to this, they were replaced by Jake Wade Wall, who's a guy who did like the When a Stranger Calls remake, the Hitcher remake. He has a story credit on the fucking Jacob's Ladder remake, and he did one of the other Halloween 9 scripts, which we don't actually have. He did The Missing Years. Apparently, little is known of this, because he was apparently hired to pitch his own version, but it was also called Retribution. It was dated from May of 2004, and it featured John Tate, Lee Brackett, Freddie Harris, but other characters, including Lindsay Wallace and fucking Jimmy the EMT.
Interesting.
And somewhere along the way, this just kind of fell out of favor. It's not clear why. It may have been the fact that, they didn't think they could get Josh Hartnett back.
Yeah, he was a high-paid actor at that point, wasn't he?
Yeah, he would have been, because this is post-Pearl Harbor. Not that he would have been against doing, like, another horror movie, because he did do 30 Days a Night. But I don't think...
he also did... he was also interviewed for the making of H2O and for the box set.
Oh, that's cool. But
yeah.
I guess Dimension just wouldn't want to have paid his fee.
Yeah.
Because they're so notoriously tight with money. But overall, I do think...
Yeah, even with returning actors, that's why we don't have Danielle Harris.
Yeah.
In Halloween 6.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Not even a big star compared to Hartnett.
Yeah. Yeah, they were very cheapskate. Just look at all those Hellraiser movies. Goddamn.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And this kind of passed out of, this never moved forward. And as they went along, there was they were apparently considering doing back-to-back direct-to-video movies called Halloween Haddonfield and Halloween Asylum, with John Sullivan, who had taken 2 of his spec scripts and rewrote them into Prophecy 4 and 5, which got shot back-to-back overseas and went direct-to-video. In fact, they were shot back-to-back with 4 other movies, too. Dracula 2 and 3, and Hellraiser 7 and 8. Jesus, that's that's like the end. That's like a sign of the end times right there when those movies are all getting made at the same time.
Yeah, Jesus.
It's fitting that those movies had to do with the Antichrist.
Yeah.
But he did it, and the idea sounded interesting, at least for the Haddonfield one, because he has a very different take on Haddonfield where they actually embraced, their history and started exploiting it for tourists and stuff.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, and the idea is that they're doing reenactments and he's stalking the woman who was playing Judith in the reenactment.
Ooh, that'd be really interesting.
Yeah, and then it would end with him captured or something, and then the second one would take place in an asylum.
Yeah.
But those didn't go forward largely because I believe the Akkads were blocking the idea of Halloween going direct to video.
Yeah.
And that would lead into the next script.
Bathroom break.
Yep. I think I might just stop No, I'll let the recording keep going.
No, you'll want to stop the recording.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll stop it. All right, and so about less than a year later, in January of 2005, we get the next script, which is Halloween Asylum, written by Matt Venn. I'm not really sure how to pronounce that name. And there's an illegible handwritten note on the title page saying, sent to Malik as Squiggle, because I can't read it. And it's dated January 28th, 2005. And the premise for this one is that it's essentially, it picks up right after Resurrection. Immediately after Resurrection, we deal with Busta Rhymes. Michael gets captured. He gets sent to this absolutely insane new version of Smith's Grove, which is a mental hospital / penitentiary. And he's basically been sentenced to death. He's going to be executed, but things go all pear-shaped, and he's stalking a nurse around the hospital, and all the inmates have gotten out, and blah, blah, blah.
It's hard to say whether or not this is a better draft than Stolberg Goldfinger version from 2014.
I mean, it's less stupid in some ways, but more stupid in others.
Yeah.
Now, Matt Venn's IMDb page is actually rather interesting for a given definition of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's he has a bunch of things on there. His first credit is a Masters of Horror episode called Pelts, which you've said is quite good. I've not seen it.
Yeah, it's not as good as the Dario Argento episode that Argento did a year earlier, Jennifer, which was based on a story that was published in Creepy Comics. But no, for a good gross out episode, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, and he wrote White Noise 2: The Light, which was a spec script of his that he rewrote into a sequel to, of all fucking things, that White Noise movie.
Yeah.
Which he actually wrote before the script we're talking about. He did an episode of Fear Itself, which I don't actually remember, even though I had to have seen it because I watched all that show when it was airing.
Yeah, it's the episode of Eric Roberts.
He did the teleplay for Mirrors 2, even though that's a direct-to-video movie and not a TV movie.
Depends on where it was released, I guess.
Yeah. The 2-part Bag of Bones miniseries, which I haven't heard much of anything about. What I've heard has been lukewarm, considering that's a very well-liked Stephen King book.
Mm-hmm.
Fright Night 2, the sequel to the remake.
Haven't seen it.
I don't think anyone has. The Exorcism of Molly Hartley, which I think seeing advertisements for, but I never saw the movie. And then Acts of Vengeance, which is something I might want to see because it's an Isaac Florentine action movie, and it's got Antonio Banderas and Carl Urban in it.
Yeah.
Florentine did a lot of the Scott Adkins movies. And he did a couple of direct-to-video Van Damme movies, which is actually better than it sounds because Van Damme has done a lot of his better work direct-to-video, if I'm being honest.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a segment of the recent Creepshow series called The Companion, which I've not seen that show, so.
It's a first season episode, and from what I remember, because I have to watch season 2 if I'm being honest. Like I've seen a couple of segments here and there, and then season 3 is currently running. But like I remember the first season, it was kind of like, something about the show is just not quite gelling together with me. That would probably just take more like refining of your technique with the show and budget, and then I'll probably say I love it. And I probably will when I watch the new episodes.
I just got sick and tired of the ads they would show on YouTube because they always played the exact same clip from the Nazi episode.
Yeah.
Shudder's advertisement is terrible because they kept advertising their horror noir documentary like a year and a half after it came out.
Yeah.
Like, I just got so sick of seeing that. But so, yeah, he's got a mixed filmography, to say the least.
But sounds like a ballsy guy, apparently, from what we've read here.
Oh, yeah. Especially if it happens well after Asylum. Because he had another incident with Halloween and Dimension.
Mm-hmm.
And just to pull the book out and see if I can get any background on this. So basically, he pitched, and his whole idea of it is that he wanted to do the hospital idea. He loved the hospital idea from Halloween 2 and kind of wanted to play into that. And so he pitched, and then there was kind of an informal announcement from Malekakad where he said, we don't have anything quite yet. We're going to make an announcement soon. And then Fangoria kind of scooped them on it. And they had a fairly accurate synopsis. And so the actual announcement never actually took place.
Mm-hmm.
And we just flip back to his interview here. He got approached by a Dimension guy named Nick Phillips, who was apparently a big supporter of the series and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how we got to pitch it. And here's what he has to say about Halloween Resurrection. I still think there are things you can enjoy in that one, even though a lot of people hate it. So whatever I came up with from Halloween 9 had to work from that chronology, but that was all the direction I had. They basically had to give me they basically offered me a blank slate. Yeah, he says he wanted to copy the approach with the isolated hospital setting and felt that Smith's Grove was the perfect location to do it.
Which you had just reworked on Retribution script, but oh well.
The idea was to do an updated riff on Halloween 2, very simple but also cool. That kind of isolated horror goes back to classic films like Alien and Night of the Living Dead. Never compare yourself to Alien. You're gonna come off like a jackass.
Yeah.
I mean, even like Last Voyage of the Demeter, which is a pretty good script, it's like, dude, don't compare yourself to Alien, stop.
Yeah. Unless you're Event Horizon, but Event Horizon does something different with it.
Okay, so Asylum, it opens on the night of October 31st, 2002, right after the conclusion of Resurrection, even though I think they say it's 2001 in Resurrection.
I've never been able to tell what year that movie takes place in. If it's 2001, people should have gotten over 9/11 pretty quickly.
Yeah, and the last script referred to it as 2001, so maybe nobody knows.
No, the last script referred to it as 2002.
Oh, it did?
Yeah, Laurie Strode's Tombstone.
Oh, shit. Well, never mind.
And the fact that it said 25 years later at the beginning, that would imply 25 years after 1978 is 2003, my buddy.
Okay, because then a radio news broadcast catches us up to speed on the events of that movie, and Michael's body is wheeled into the morgue at Haddonfield Memorial Hospital. And the burned body's eyes open and it lunges at the medical examiner, which is, the ending of Halloween Resurrection, only to fall to the floor, apparently just a post-mortem nerve spasm. And the medical examiner finds that a wallet has fallen off the body, and after getting jump-scared by a cop, revealing it to actually be Jim Morgan, one of the victims from Resurrection. He was the art student that the girl said sleeping with him would be tantamount to lesbianism. And then she tried to sleep with him anyways.
Yeah.
He's the one who they find the fake corpses in the basement. He goes, made in fucking Taiwan?
Yeah, I remember.
So, what this script just did, it did the opening of Resurrection with the fucking ambulance driver, whoever it was, the paramedic. It did it again.
Yeah.
God damn it. Nobody liked that to begin with. I mean, at least this is like an actual character, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
So it then goes to a rundown motel outside of town where Freddie Harris, once again says Busta Rhymes in the parentheses, is taking a shower. And Michael, who approached the motel in POV, stalks through the room and is getting ready to strangle Harris with his Dangertainment ID tag in the shower when the phone rings. And Michael disappears, And Harris continues his shower and gets out. He gets jump scared by a rat, and completely ignores what looks like Michael in his closet because, as we learn, he is surrounded by Michael costumes he had made for Dangertainment.
Why he wouldn't have just immediately thrown that out like the TV in Poltergeist, I don't know.
And Harris realizes he left one of the masks back. Also, this is a different motel from Resurrection.
Yeah.
He realizes he left one of his masks back at the Myers house. I left my wallet back at that massage parlor. Rush Hour 2, for anyone who doesn't get it.
Yeah.
And we then get a flashback showing Michael left in the house's basement to burn. Bit of a retcon. Looking over at Jim's corpse and getting an idea. So Michael, the fight from the end of Resurrection has been moved from the garage to the basement.
Also, I don't remember that character dying in the basement. It was upstairs.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Not upstairs, but like on the main floor.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've watched Resurrection, you guys, but I remembered that bit.
Does anybody... It's Resurrection, nobody. And then we go back to the motel where the power cuts out, and Harris discovers that the phone's cord has been cut, and he gets very scared and grabs a lamp, lunging at all of the costumes to make sure one of them isn't the real deal, which, in fairness, that could be really cool if directed right.
Mm-hmm.
And Harris heads for the manager's. He makes his way to the door, heads for the manager's office, and finds the wheelchair-bound man in the back room watching the burning, apparently dead. So, good taste. Good
movie.
Yeah, good taste. Early Weinstein movie.
Yeah.
It's honestly a really good slasher film.
Definitely.
And, however, he was just playing possum, assuming that the black motel guest was going to rob him, so we get randomly racist guy.
Yeah.
And then Michael suddenly reaches into frame, snaps the man's neck, and he rips a foot pedal from the wheelchair before picking the whole thing up and throwing it at Harris. And Michael then impales him with the foot pedal and pins him to the wall, and the man, with one last fuck you and some bloody spit, dies. How do we like that death?
It's funny considering that he gets arrested like 2 seconds later.
Yeah. They didn't give a shit about Buster Rhymes.
Yeah, it's like, and the guy, the cop goes, "Thank God we caught Michael." I'm like, oh shit, 2 more people are dead.
Yeah, because Michael's just sitting there looking at his work on the wall like he does in every fucking movie, because we gotta reference that scene from the original. And then the room floods with cops, led by the one from the hospital, who continuously taser him until he's down, managing to catch the infamous killer.
It reminds me of when the Bond girl in Skyfall is killed, and then like 2 seconds later, the cavalry shows up. It's like, oh shit.
Yeah, it's right. It's like the inverse of Matrix Reloaded, where the Oracle and Seraph, they just fuck off, and like seconds later, Agent Smith shows up. And it cuts to a title sequence detailing the arrest and trial of Michael Myers, all depicted through archival footage, photographs, etc., ending with the reveal that he's been incarcerated in Smiths Grove State Hospital / penitentiary, where he will await execution in the electric chair. That's very similar to the opening credits sequence from Halloween Returns.
Yeah.
Only I think they say here he's not actually present during the trial.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, and so...
Which would become more common during COVID.
Michael has to show up and kill people via Zoom. He's like the unfriended ghost.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, there's a funny bit in South Park where Randy is on a iPad and on a Frankenstein monster, and he runs into some kids' rooms. He goes, "Streaming Halloween 4? Ha ha!"
But yeah, so Smith's Grove in this is basically Arkham Asylum.
I pointed that out about the Stolberg and Goldfinger draft, though.
But it's way more true here.
Oh yeah.
When I say Arkham Asylum, it's like the video game Arkham Asylum, where there's a fucking normal prison right down the road from your mental hospital, right next to your mental hospital, and there's even a death row in Arkham Asylum. Now, given that this is set in 2005, it would be right around there. This is before, I think, Illinois got rid of the death penalty, so it doesn't
Illinois got rid of the death penalty in 2011.
So this doesn't have the plot hole of those other 2 scripts of an execution.
Yes.
So then cuts to October 30th in Haddonfield, where Halloween is in full swing and the residents seem to be celebrating the impending execution. And we then get introduced to our lead, Lucy Garrity, a nurse at Smith's Grove.
I guess we just forgot about the travel distance between the 2 fucking places again.
Yeah, we did. We're going back to the Halloween 6 thing. and whose boyfriend Brad is supposed to drive her to work, but he hasn't shown up. And Lucy thinks she sees Michael in the yard, but it's just an effigy the neighbors are setting on fire. That or it's John Strode's front lawn. And so Lucy finally accepts a ride from her roommate Catherine, and on the drive over, they talk about how Brad has no money, works at the gas station, but he might be working there, but she might be working at the hospital to help carry him. It's all a bunch of bullshit that goes nowhere.
Yeah.
And a huge crowd is gathered outside the building in anticipation of the execution, which is due to take place that night in a mental hospital.
Yep.
We then go to a ratty apartment where we catch up with former Sheriff Lee Brackett, who has gathered all sorts of tapes and photos relating to Michael, and he looks at a picture of his dead daughter before heading out. So he's got, once again, we got that storage space from True Detective.
Yep.
He just moved into Kane Gabriel's apartment and didn't change anything.
Yeah.
And so Lucy finally gets past the crowd into the hospital come prison and meets with head nurse Regina Jones, who's just that character from Halloween 2, who scolds her for being late, telling her to get a new boyfriend or a new bus schedule. And she also sticks Lucy with a rotation on red level handing out meds since all the others have been taken before she got there. And she also has to wear a special device with a red button on it, which sends out a GPS signal when pushed, in case she runs into trouble with the patients. It's like a personal alarm thing that comes back, like, it's important once.
Mm-hmm.
Lucy then takes an elevator down to a cage-like level where patients mill about, and is escorted by guards. Like, I thought she went to another elevator, but later they go down to this place through a staircase. So maybe I took my notes wrong, I don't know. But
or maybe there wasn't that attention to detail.
Yeah. So she takes her all the way to the bottom, red level, or Killer's Row as it's known, where the worst of the worst are held. And she's met by veteran guard Bill Jenkins and a new trainee guard, the nervous Sam Smith, who knows that the writing is on the wall.
Fire, get off. Would you break my heart?
Is this going to have a scene where Michael gets molested by an octopus? Because that's all that opening was the song and tentacle porn. But Jenkins explains the level to Smith, how it can hold up to 20. 20? How many fucking insane serial killers are you going to expect to have?
I mean, it's Illinois. The only other insane serial killer I would know about at this current point is Chucky.
Chucky.
Because that is an Illinois character when you think about it.
Yeah, that's right. And he does eventually get to an asylum. I've only seen like 2 Chucky movies.
I'm gonna have to change that someday, buddy.
Yeah, I've seen the original and the remake.
Tisk.
I like the remake. Oh, but let's not go into that. We don't have time.
Yeah.
But they now have 2, bar Michael, who has his own special lockdown area all to himself. The overweight, tattooed mass murderer Wade Ludlow, whom they caught because he was getting tattoos of his victims, and he had a few they hadn't found yet on there.
Sure wasn't because he was running out of a cheesecake factory.
And disfigured necrophile cult leader Jake Gracie.
You'll never take me a wife, couples.
Who he screws corpses and cuts off a piece of his skin and leaves it with the body. And now he has cult followers who do the same thing. I'm still not sure this guy needs to be on the Killer's Row.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like he's just stupid.
These guys totally sound like Batman villains. Like, Ludlow could easily be like a minion of like the Leto Joker.
Whatever you say, Mr. J.
And Gracie is just like, he's just like a fucked up version of Zaz.
Mm-hmm.
And they
But Zaz who's only like, inwardly violent, not outwardly violent.
Yes. And they escort Lucy as she delivers their medication via a drop box. And then they head into Michael's special isolation cell, which is an entire auditorium converted into a massive cell. And there's like a cage in the middle of it or something.
Yeah.
Or it's like the whole room is a cage. It's described very weirdly.
Mm-hmm.
And so Lucy is unnerved by Michael's intense, unbroken stare, which is directed at her from behind his restraint mask. So it's like Silence of the Lambs, only it covers his entire face, and it's there for to set up something kind of dumb later.
Mm-hmm.
And
also, he's receiving his meds on the day of execution.
What medication would you give Michael Myers? Would you give him Zoloft or something?
Well, what was it? Thorazine.
He won't be able to stand up. And so
well, I was going to say, in this case, you would literally want a weekend Michael Myers if you're about to execute him, whatever.
You might lethally inject him with that shit on accident. But, okay, so we then go to the office of the warden, Dr. Phineas Crane, who is being interviewed by 3 documentarians for a doc called The Life and Death of Michael Myers. There's the director and boom operator, Tyler, cameraman, Jared, hopefully no relation to the subway guy, and sound mixer, Evie. Although she seems to be the one in charge, it's very weird.
Yeah.
I'm proud of what I am, a sound mixer. Through his answers to their questions, it would seem that Crane has been humbled and somewhat intimidated by having Michael in his care, and he's looking forward to ridding the world of this evil just after the stroke of midnight, because they are dramatic as shit. And Jenkins soon arrives and announces that it's time for the execution. And Lucy is taking a breather in the locker room when she gets a call from Brad, but the awful reception in the building makes it impossible to make out. Gotta have the phones not working trope.
Mm-hmm.
Which, to their credit, when Stolberg and Goldfinger did their Asylum draft, they actually tried to explain that somewhat.
Yeah.
Yeah, if this is starting to sound familiar to anybody, we did a script a couple years ago, which was basically this, but rewritten extensively.
Page 1.
It was a page 1 rewrite, but it was still basically the same premise. It had some of the same ideas in it. We'll talk about that a little bit later after we finish it, talking about this.
Oh, man, I have not looked at that script since.
I'll just mention it.
Damn, we're talking about... Jeez, we're really going back a while now, it feels like.
Yeah. Well, I was confused when I first got that script, because I had heard about this one, but then I got that one, which was dated later, and was different writers, and I was like, what the hell is this? And then eventually it came out. But yeah, she gets spooked out by clothes and a restraint mask hanging on a clothesline, but calms down when she bumps into Regina, who realizes that Michael really got to her. And back in the auditorium, Crane, Jenkins, and Sam enter as Henry Chang. The medical examiner prepares Michael for the execution, shaving part of his scalp and his calf, and a fully armored guard, complete with face mask, watches over Michael with a shotgun. And this poor guy does not get a name.
Not even Porkins.
Yeah, it could be fucking Commissioner Gordon from The Dark Knight in there. We don't know. Brackett soon arrives, and Crane lets him have a moment with Michael, and he pulls out the picture of Annie and tries to make Michael acknowledge her, blah, 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 and apologize. And angered by Michael's continued silence, Brackett pulls a gun out of an ankle holster and tries to shoot him, leading to a struggle with the guards. Chang drops his late razor blade, and the fully armored guard takes his gun off Michael for a second, and Sam's ID tag pops off his collar, sliding towards Michael, and Michael's just staring at it, once again, like that pen from Silence of the Lambs. And Brackett is subdued and hauled off to a solitary confinement cell. And Chang retrieves his straight razor, and Sam finds his tag on the ground next to him, only the clasp is now broken. And so a distraught Brackett is locked up by Jenkins, upset that he's going to miss the execution now. And the bell chimes midnight as he rages on. There's a bit where Jenkins is like, just gotta do this execution, and tomorrow I'm gonna go home and go trick-or-treating with my kids.
Jenkins, yeah.
Yeah, Jenkins says that, and I'm like, well, he's dead.
He might as well just said, I have 2 days till retirement.
Yeah.
I sure hope nothing bad happens.
Before I read this draft, I saw someone on the Halloween message boards compare it to Con Air, and that's not far off. It really is like a dumb action movie. But Con Air is, if anything, a better movie than this.
Yeah, I do like his death scene, though.
When we get to it.
Yeah.
And so, the document...
and also when he realizes something is wrong, he's like, or maybe not.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, the documentarians set up their equipment in the electric chamber's viewing booth, and Michael, still masked, which is something that they were apparently under orders to do by Crane, why I don't know, is escorted
especially with how sadistic he is otherwise.
Yeah, because the script said so, I guess. Is escorted to the chamber by a whole team of guards, led by the fully armored lead guard. A title guards tells that it is now October 31st, 2005. Halloween. Michael, with surprisingly little resistance, is strapped into the electric chair, and Sam, put in charge of operating the current, switches it on. Yeah, we're going to put the new guy in charge of executions. I guess we can tell Michael the writing is on the wall. They send enough electricity through him to make the lights blink on and off throughout the facility, and Michael's head even catches on fire, which disgusts even the victims' families in the viewing room. And Michael's body starts to twitch and spasm, and after a few more moments, Crane signals Sam to turn off the current. Chang examines the charred and melted body for signs of life and confirms that Michael Myers is in fact dead, news which Crane then relays to the governor using the phone next to his seat in the viewing room. So he got it worse than that one guy in the fucking Green Mile, damn. And we go to the fully armored guard, his scarred hand showing as he walks down the corridor towards the generator room. And it's mentioned that there's something familiar or predatory about his walk, so... Oh no, they're doing it again, aren't they? And back in Crane's office, he's being interviewed by the documentary crew again, when Jared notices that the side yard outside the window is full of loose inmates in white robes, complete with the line, "Do you let them wander around?" Completely unnecessary reference there.
Yeah.
And without skipping a beat, Crane triggers the lockdown functions, sealing the outside gates of so much for, but that doesn't really help with the side yard, and bringing down steel shutters over the doors and windows, something that's been in place since 1978. So this whole place becoming basically Arkham Asylum was a reaction to that breakout.
Yeah.
Back in the generator room, the fully armored guard who has ripped out the wires for the doors can't go back the way he came thanks to the lockdown, and heads for the nearby evidence lockers when he is confronted by a growling German Shepherd guard dog. He cocks his head as he looks at it, confirming that he is in fact Michael Myers. Yes, my number one enemy, dogs. He hates dogs more than he hates his sisters. And
well, I was gonna say, at least he's not attracted to dogs.
Or fish, like Troy McClure. In the side yard, the guards are trying to corral the inmates back into the building, but they're fighting back pretty hard. And there's one inmate named Hutter, which is a rather strange reference to Nosferatu, sneaks back into the building during the chaos, unseen by anyone else. And we go back to the generator room, seeing Michael has killed the dog by snapping its back in 3 places. Lucy is in the rocker room, tries to call out on the landline, only to find that the phone is dead, and moves toward a sound coming from where a line of straitjackets is hanging up. And we go back to Crane's office. He orders Sam to watch the documentary crew in there, sends Jenkins to check on the generator room, before heading off to the coroner's lab himself. Lucy checks behind the straitjackets, finds nothing behind them, only to get jumped from behind by Hutter, who's being a creepy asshole. And he gets her to calm down and suggests a good hiding place. The old Hall of Records underneath Killer's Row and unused for 20 years. I'm like, why would it be down there? But this isn't the script to ask that kind of question with.
Mm-hmm.
And Hutter used to work down there on the work reform program and proposes that Lucy get them into Killer's Row and he'll help her find the Hall of Records. Lucy agrees, despite him being cagey about why he was committed. And Jenkins makes it to a generator room, finds the torn-out wires, and he's about to report it in when he sees an evidence locker has been broken open and checks it out. It's labeled Michael Myers. Dun, dun, dun.
Mm-hmm.
And Jenkins backs away, slips on a pool of blood, which has dripped down from the dog's carcass, which has been hung from the ceiling, seemingly torn open with teeth. Like Michael ate him.
Well, that was implied in the first movie, wasn't it?
Yeah, the dog that we don't actually see until Halloween Kills.
Mm-hmm.
And he backs away on his hands and knees and bumps into someone big, turning around to see Michael wearing his full outfit, mask and coveralls. Jenkins begs for his life, but Michael just crushes his head into mush with one of the evidence lockers.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was awesome. It reminds me, there's a Three Stooges episode where they accidentally drop a locker on the guy. He's like, "You hit him with the locker too?" "I didn't hit him, the locker did." And so we go to the coroner's lab where Crane watches as Chang examines the body, discovering cranial damage to the back of the head. And we get flashbacks interspersed with this, showing how Michael broke off the ID tag's clasp, picked his cuffs with it, and snuck around by climbing on the bars on the cage, stuck around the guard by doing that to bash his head in. Chang then opens the body's mouth, and we get a flashback to Michael, having now changed into the guard's uniform, rips out the man's tongue before placing the restraint mask on him and sliding the faceplate on the guard helmet into place. So what did he do with the tongue? How did they not notice the blood and shit?
Yeah, I know.
Did he eat the tongue?
I don't know.
So yes, they did the opening thing of Resurrection with the paramedic again. They did it twice.
Mm-hmm.
I get not wanting to have Michael actually go to the electric chair, because, they don't want to make him that supernatural in the movie. I get that, but this could have been handled a lot better.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the changes that happens in the Stolberg version, is that he actually does get electrocuted and gets, superpowers from it. which was apparently a Bob Weinstein idea.
Yeah. Not a bad one, but yeah.
Yeah. But now Crane is determined not to stop Michael, but to kill him before he kills anyone else. That is something I like better about this version. I like Crane better than the Warden in that, because the Warden in that is kind of a cartoon character.
They're both kind of cartoon characters, but yeah.
This guy's a little bit more Loomisy.
Mm-hmm.
So Lucy and Hooder, they make it down to Killer's Row, but find Jenkins' bloody keyring on the floor and all of the cell doors open, with Ludlow and Gracie missing. They then get pinned between the two killers in a corridor, with Lucy kicking Gracie in the balls, which he enjoys, like the Joker, and her and Hooder run back the way they came in, hiding in a room down a side passage. And so we go to Nurse Regina, who makes her way to the kitchen, stalked by Michael all the way, and this is actually a decently written scene where he's like there, but she doesn't see him.
Mm-hmm.
And she drops her little personal alarm, because he deliberately startles her by making the pots clang against each other. She drops the alarm, it falls beneath the stove, and she's reaching for it, she's trying to get it, but she keeps accidentally pushing it further back, which I know how that feels.
Mm-hmm.
And she reaches for it one more time, and then a page is missing, and we don't see what happens.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Try contacting Matt and see if we can get this page.
I wouldn't know how to.
Probably on Twitter, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he probably wouldn't after hearing this episode.
Yeah, we'll just say, hey, you know what, bad take, so what, didn't get made.
Yeah, and Sam is still watching the film crew in the office when Crane bursts in, takes a gun from his desk, and pages for all guards to head to Sector 5. He says he's going to kill Michael Myers, and that Sector 5, aka the kitchen, is where somebody's personal alarm has gone off. He has Sam come with him, and the crew, thinking that Crane has lost it, decide to find their own way out, even the reluctant Tyler. So these characters are stupid.
Mm-hmm.
They're the dumb teens of this script.
And yet they're all NYU grads.
Yep. They're Friday the 13th characters in this, really.
Yeah, but they're dumb even by Friday the 13th standards.
Oh yeah, definitely. And speaking of dumb, a team of armored guards streams into the kitchen, tracking the alarm to the back of the freezer. They find the alarm attached to Regina's frozen corpse and discover that the hanging meat slabs are all really dead bodies. Who? I'm not sure. And Michael then slams the door shut and locks it, turning the temperature down all the way. You can't actually lock a freezer door like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a button on the inside you can push to open it, unless he jammed like an ice pick or something into the little hole on the latch.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't actually lock one of those.
Yeah, no, I've been in, because I've done work in restaurants, and yeah, I've been inside those freezers before.
Yeah, in the grocery stores I've worked in, I've noticed all that. It's and Crane and Sam are making their way there when the blip on Crane's tracking device goes dead, and he no longer has any idea what to do. And we then go to the coroner's lab, where Chang is drinking vodka from a urine sample cup. Ugh. And walking by hanging skeletons with Halloween slogans. He then gets spooked by what appears to be someone wearing a sheet like a ghost, but it's just another skeleton. And then Michael appears, impaling Chang on the hanging hook and pushing the rolling platform over to where the rest of the skeletons are. And I don't really give a shit.
Yeah.
He's not really a character in this. Like, the guy in the other draft is like, he's like really eager to like get Michael's body and examine his brain and stuff. So at least that was like a character. This guy's just here.
Mm-hmm.
And so Hooder and Lucy making their way through Killer's Row when they bump into the film crew who somehow got down there. And they mention that they're heading for a good hiding place, but Evie insists they should look for a way out, and Tyler lets go of Lucy and Hooder, while Evie goes off in a different direction with Jared in tow. And back in the solitary cell, Brackett is still locked up. The viewing slot slides open, but no one is there when he walks up. However, someone snatches his picture of Annie and cuts her face out of it. And when he angrily presses his face against the slot, Michael appears and slices his eyes, blinding him and leaving him to bleed to death. What a great use of Sheriff Brackett, right? He gets to come back, is a dumbass, and it's his fault Michael escapes, and then he just gets randomly killed.
Yeah, if I were Cyphers, I would have turned this script down.
Yep.
Or at least request like a major revision on the fate and also actions.
Yeah, just let him get out of the cell. If he got out of the cell and got to actually confront Michael, that would be a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
Also, apparently Michael has teleportation because he's going to every single place in the hospital in like no time flat.
Mm-hmm.
Crane and Sam are walking along, and Crane tries to boost Sam morale by reminding him of his 2 daughters. He was like, it isn't your destiny to die tonight, blah, blah, blah. And of course, Sam is almost immediately beheaded by an inmate. But it's not Michael Myers, it's one with a chunk of skin removed from his forehead, so it's basically Crane shoots him dead, but more show up along with Gracie, who basically has indoctrinated a bunch of the patients into his cult, and Crane is forced to run.
Oh, jeez, this is stupid.
I'm expecting fucking chattering Joker teeth to be all over the floor in this place.
I hated that bit in an Arkham Asylum, that those things bugged the fuck out of me.
Yeah, and you have to find them, too. And while Lucy and Tyler keep following Hooder, who Tyler points out isn't exactly trustworthy, Evie and Jared break into a door marked restricted, finding themselves in an old, disused storage room. And Jared uses the night vision function on the camera to navigate, and Evie starts to strip to encourage him to keep going. There's a breakout going on, and you're doing this shit.
The only time I remember a striptease and night vision being used, it was Hollow Man 2.
Doesn't that reuse footage from the first movie too?
I don't know. I kind of remember liking that movie for a few scenes.
Hollow Man 1 was okay.
It's probably Verhoeven's weakest movie, though.
Yeah, it's not Verhoeven's best work, but it was okay. Weird ass Kevin Bacon gets us a few extra points.
Yeah, there's a few clever scenes though in that sequel. I'll talk about it later, though.
No, we don't.
Yeah, with you personally.
Yeah. However, Michael quickly grabs Jared and snaps his neck, propping the camera on top of some boxes to make it look like someone's holding it. And I very much blaze through this in the notes because this scene goes on forever. It walks that fine line between suspenseful and just pointlessly drawn out and stumbles over into the drawn out side of it.
Yep.
And so Evie soon stumbles on Jared's corpse. Like I put in the notes, after a really drawn-out suspense scene. And we watch via the camera Michael sneak up on Evie and stab her to death with his knife. So, found footage Michael before that was even a thing.
Yep.
Elsewhere,
kind of like we almost got that found footage Friday the 13th.
I think they even pitched a found footage Michael movie at one point.
Oh, no.
Elsewhere, Crane manages to trick most of the cultists into running into Killer's Row, where he shuts and locks the doors behind them, mostly neutralizing that threat. And Hooder has finally led Lucy and Tyler to the doors of the Hall of Records, where Tyler makes him stop and explain what he's in there for, and this is a scene I actually like. Hooder talks about how his wife and child were murdered and that he snapped as a result. He was hospitalized and later released, but couldn't take being out in the world, so he voluntarily had himself committed again. And it's a really nice character moment.
Yeah.
And then he's killed with an axe by Ludlow. I mean, it's still better than the other Asylum script, where at the very beginning they're like, remember this guy, he's going to be important, and he doesn't show up for like another 70 pages and does nothing.
Then kills the DA.
Yeah. And then Ludlow is in turn stabbed to death by Michael, and he attacks them, managing to wound Tyler before he and Lucy get into the Hall of Records, shutting and locking the door behind them. Michael pounds at the door for a while before giving up and stalking off into the darkness. And Lucy bandages Tyler's wound with an old white robe, and we get this reference that they're starting to become attracted to one another, which is pointless and goes nowhere.
Yeah, if anything, this should have been Hooder.
Yeah. This is the epitome of the man and a woman falling in love because they're on screen together.
Man and shoe size too small for him. Shoehorn female relationship.
They then come across some old filing cabinets, and in one of the drawers they find all of the old files on Michael from his original incarceration. Underneath photos, letters from deranged fans, which are filled with random movie references where it will say Jamie, Thorne, Cult, Druids.
Which wouldn't mean anything in this timeline.
Well, you being the Thorne fan and all.
Yeah, but it has to make sense. Like, okay, so is this the same... Because in Halloween 6, Smith's Grove was also the dungeon for the cult.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
Or unless this is a letter by Daniel Ferrens along with his screenplay for The Haunting of Sharon Tate.
That, or this is the theatrical cut where it was the spooky science lab.
Well, still, it's never pointed out, so why is this reference in here?
I don't know. Fan service.
Yeah, but it's fan service that doesn't make any sense.
But then they find a stack of cassette tapes labeled as Michael's counseling sessions with Loomis. Now, this is one of the only specifics really that carries over to that other script is the idea of the tape.
Mm-hmm. Well, also though, in Rob Zombie's Halloween, there is audio recordings done with Michael.
Yeah, that's true.
But that's random and not.
Fucking.
He didn't get the idea from this.
Yeah, fucking Loomis and Michael talking about colors for some reason.
And doesn't Loomis get the color spectrum wrong?
No, I think he gets it right. He says white is all colors and black is no color. I think that's right. I don't tend to go back to his first Halloween very much.
White light is a combination of all colors in the color spectrum. It is the colors of the rainbow. Okay. Whatever.
Yeah. And so Lucy plays one of the tapes which recounts the first session with Loomis. And the young Michael surprisingly talks and admits to killing Judith. But when Loomis asks him why he did it, he clams up and that's basically it's the last point he ever spoke. Which is,
Yeah.
I don't really care.
It's a moment that's repeated in the 2014 draft.
I don't remember if the dialogue on that tape was the same.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up, but yeah.
But Michael does talk on it, and they use it for the same thing later. And they then hear someone banging at the door and a woman crying for help. And Lucy wants to let her in, so they go and open the door, only to find an empty hallway, along with the camera, which is looping Evie's cries for help, which you think they would be able to tell it was a recording.
Yeah.
And Michael then appears, mockingly bangs on the door one more time, and pins Tyler to the wall with his knife, killing him. So, yeah, that was a nice, well-used character.
Mm-hmm.
And Lucy flees back into the Hall of Records, finding a hook pin that was likely used for lobotomies, gets into a hiding place to ambush Michael, and he sees just a tip of her shoe sticking out, so he goes around the long way to sneak attack her, only she deliberately took off her shoes and placed them there to lure him. And so she jumps on his back, jabbing at his eyes, eventually embedding it in his right eye socket and shoving it down into his skull. So yeah, he just got a lobotomy.
Mm-hmm.
And despite being sure she's killed Michael, Lucy flees into the hallway. I like that. I like the fact that she doesn't stick around and try and check his pulse.
Yeah.
And she then gets jumped by Gracie and his two remaining cultists, and he holds her down, strangling and dry humping her, because that's an image we need.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Michael appears, having removed the pin. Bloody tears dripping down from one eye hole of his mask. Can you tell he likes Halloween too?
Yeah.
Snaps.
Well, are you sure he doesn't love the Castlevania track too?
Well, that is a great track.
Yeah.
So great, they actually put it in the Netflix show in one scene.
Yeah.
Snaps next to the two flunkies and he crushes Gracie's skull into pulp, which was admittedly pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, those two serial killers, they build them up a lot and they don't do a whole lot.
Yep.
So she flees. She can't get past Michael to the exit, so she flees into the Hall of Records. She plays the tape again, and Michael is mesmerized by the sound of his own voice. And because she was playing it on this old-ass big stereo, she brains him with it and tries to run for it, only for Michael to grab her leg and trip her. Michael stomps the tape player. I guess he hates the sound of his own voice, and brings up the hook pin, attempting to push it into Lucy's eye, which was actually, I like that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's just petty as fuck, I guess. But that's when Crane arrives, filling Michael full of bullets. He assures Lucy that she's safe and leads her out of the Hall of Records. And there's actually like a pan over to the door, holding just long enough to make you think Michael will walk out, but he doesn't. And we then see the lockdown being lifted, revealing that it is now in fact midday and raining. And Lucy, sitting in Crane's office while he explains the situation to the governor, thinks she sees Michael outside the window, but he's gone in an eye blink, and she puts it down to the early stages of shock. So an Asylum van drops Lucy off at home in Haddonfield, where it's now Halloween and trick-or-treaters are roaming the streets. Lucy, not noticing that the front door is ajar, enters her home and starts calling out to Catherine, who doesn't respond. She soon finds Brad's gas station uniform on the couch, and realizing something must be wrong, hears noises from upstairs and grabs a kitchen knife before heading to investigate. God, this ending just drags out.
Mm-hmm.
Back at Smith's Grove, a guard enters Crane's office and tells him that Michael's body isn't there, just a blood trail leading to employee records where certain files are missing, and realizing what's happened, Crane bolts out of there. And Lucy breathes a sigh of relief when she finds Catherine in bed, but Brad is also there and they're both passed out and naked. However, a closer inspection reveals the sheets are bloody and they've both been stabbed. Lucy, not seeing Michael in the room, stumbles into the hallway. Michael cuts her back badly, and she accidentally crashes through the banister and falls to the first floor. And Lucy moves to the front window to scream for help, then suddenly turns around to face Michael. She then wishes him a happy Halloween, just like Busta Rhymes, and leaps away from the window as Crane crashes his car through, slamming Michael into the wall and pinning him there. So this is just Lethal Weapon now.
Yeah.
And Crane retrieves Lucy from the wreckage of the house and goes to show her Michael's corpse, but he's gone with a blood trail leading out the back door and soon washed away by the rain. Realizing that Michael is now out and free in Haddonfield, Crane says, God help them, and Lucy, knowing that Michael will keep coming for her, corrects him, saying, God help us all. And the Halloween theme swells up and the movie fades to black, and it ends. This just isn't really a Halloween movie.
It's just not all... Retribution was actually kind of fun to read, really.
Yeah, this wasn't. It takes like 40 pages into this 112-page script to get to the execution. Goddamn.
Yeah.
It's just silly. It's like a weird action movie with Michael Myers in it.
Yeah.
It's got all the action movie cliches. It's got the photo of the wife and kids, and all it's missing is someone who's 2 days from retirement. It's totally an action movie.
Yeah, I know.
And so what happened with this script was that not long, it seemed to be getting some traction because Bob Weinstein liked it. And what happened though is that it got caught up in the split between the Weinsteins and Disney, meaning that it kind of got pushed to the side for a while, and then just nothing happened with it because of that. That was a whole big thing where they split off and Harvey formed the Weinstein Company, and that started going on in like May, I think, and it didn't fully the transfer of Dimension back to the Weinsteins didn't fully happen until October or September or something like that.
Yeah. So
this just got caught up in that and never happened, and it did kind of make a comeback, as we spoke about, in like 2013 to 2014 when Josh Stolberg and Pete Goldfinger got the chance to. They basically were brought in to work on a Halloween movie, and Bob Weinstein gave them the script and said, do a rewrite because he felt it needed updating. And that script wasn't terribly good either. I don't know if this is better or worse. It's hard to say.
Yeah, I'm indifferent.
But yeah, so this fell apart, and then there was another attempt at a Halloween 9, which was Halloween: The Missing Years, which was Jake Wade Wall, again, the guy who did a bunch of not great horror movies. And his version, it's one of those things that we've never actually seen the script. Even the Taking Shape 2 guys have never actually managed to get a copy of it. And for years to sort of pitch for it, what everyone always said it was about was that it was going to be about Michael's years in the asylum, but apparently that's only somewhat true. And there was that interview, there's an article on Bloody Disgusting that made it sound really confusing and weird, that it was people said that it was trying to fill the gaps between 2 and 4, and like what was Michael doing during Halloween 3, but in the book it's clarified quite a bit. It was once again in the H2O timeline, and it was just sort of filling in some of the things Michael did between, because there was Asylum stuff, but there was also Michael after Halloween 2, but before H2O.
Yeah.
So maybe that could have been good. I mean, I'd love to read it, even though Jake Wade Wall's filmography is once again not great. And eventually that just got superseded by the Rob Zombie movie.
Yeah.
And so that kind of wraps it up. Final thoughts?
Wasn't there some encounter that Matt Venn had with Bob Weinstein?
Yes, that happened later on because around 2012, Platinum Dunes was working with Dimension trying to do a Halloween movie. And they had all these writers coming in with pitches, and just Dimension was not doing anything. And they brought in Matt Venn to pitch, and Bob Weinstein showed up late. And after hearing the pitch, he was like, well, what else do you have? And then Matt Venn just laid into him saying, well, you're being very rude, blah, blah, blah. This is all I have. I have the pitch. That's what I came to pitch. And then Weinstein walks out, and then he continues to just and Venn just continues to keep shitting on him, talking to the executives in the room, even after he leaves.
You gotta respect Matt Venn for that.
Yes, and I'm going to pull up the final quote here in his interview because it's really funny. Bob gets up to leave the meeting, and I proceed to tell all his executives how their boss needed to get back on his meds and that I did not envy them working for him. I also explained how I would never be pitching to them or Bob ever again. And that was my spectacular fuck you and fuck off ending to that meeting. He was such a dick.
God, that is just...
Yeah, that's so good. If there's anything I learned from this book, it's that pretty much everybody came away with basically nothing but nice things to say about the Akkads, and nobody seemed to get along with Dimension very well.
Yeah.
Like, even the ones who had stronger relationships with Dimension were still incredibly frustrated by it.
Yeah.
Like, especially that whole Platinum Dunes thing, where it seemed like Form and Fuller were really eager to get a movie made, and that Dimension just kept not doing anything. They just sat on their hands.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's no wonder they lost the rights.
Yeah, and I've said before that it really is no surprise that it turns out, by the way, Bob Weinstein seemingly has evaded justice. That needs to change. But it really is no surprise that these two guys were also sexual predators, just based on their other behavior with controlling movies and franchises.
Yeah. Or not controlling them, as the case might be.
Well, yeah. Just sort of but it's still a form of micromanaging. Even letting something fall apart intentionally, that's still a form of abusive behavior.
The irony being that Halloween ended up back at Miramax.
Yeah.
And it seems like they've gotten Hellraiser away from them too, thank fuck.
Well, that was going to happen with them going to jail regardless, but yeah.
Yeah. At
least Harvey, but yeah.
And we got a new Children of the Corn movie. I don't know if anyone has actually seen it or not.
You'll see it at some point.
I still haven't seen Runaway. And I'm not exactly eager to watch a new Kurt Wimmer directed movie.
You'll watch it.
It was the first It was the first movie that went into and out of production mid-COVID.
Yeah.
Oh boy. I'm very curious as to how that Hulu Hellraiser movie is going to turn out. It sounds interesting so far, and I like Bruckner, so.
Yeah, and also we got Trans Girl Pyramid Head. It's back.
You mean Pinhead?
Yeah.
You just said Pyramid Head.
It's that time of the night, folks.
Yeah, it's like 12:30.
But Trans Girl Pinhead, respect.
Yeah, that fits the it fits the book too, so.
Yeah. All those anti-SJWs can suck it.
Yeah, we're so bored with these scripts. We're talking about Hellraiser.
Yeah, and I'm also just bored of anti-SJWs complaining every time a headline comes out that they don't like.
Yeah, it gets annoying, especially when, like, half the time that shit isn't even in... Most of the stuff they're complaining about is barely in the movie anyways.
Yeah.
They got really angry about stupid shit about Halloween 2018, and I'm like, give it a breast, guys.
Yeah, it was over, like, Jamie Lee Curtis' opinions on guns. And then now I see them talking about Halloween Kills. I'm like, guys, I really don't like it when you talk about stuff that I like. Shut up.
Hey, and contrary to what they said, New Candyman was good, so... But yeah, so overall thoughts on this whole era of Halloween scripts?
It was just kind of destined, I think, after Halloween Resurrection. It was all kind of just destined, I think, not to happen, if I'm being honest. Just considering how, obstructionists, the Weinstein brothers were.
Yeah, and the fact that they had to, the fact that both the Akkads and the Weinsteins had to agree on what to do. Yeah,
and then, unfortunately, we need to talk briefly about the attack on the Akkad wedding, which resulted in the tragic loss of Mustafa Akkad's daughter and him.
Yeah.
And I think some others. And I think there was still talk. I remember there still being talk of a Halloween 9 in 2006, but then, like, in 2006, I remember the narrative shifting really quickly, like, okay, you know what? Rob Zombie's doing the remake.
Yeah, well, I feel like the remake was inevitable by that point, because...
True. And I don't know what Mustafa's involvement with that was. I'd be interested in knowing if he knew about all of that was happening.
Well, if I ever read Taking Shape 1, that will probably say something about that in there.
Yeah, but, from everything I've ever gathered about Mustafa Akkad, is that he was one of the nicest guys you could ever imagine.
Yes,
especially as a producer.
Yes, everyone who gets interviewed in the book, everyone has nice things to say about him, and even the one person who didn't get along with him very well was Phil Rosenberg, and even he says, like, oh yeah, he was a great guy.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, even, I'm sure, like, him and John Carpenter, like, definitely had their spats and arguments over this, but I'm pretty sure if you ask John Carpenter, he would have nothing but nice things to say about Mustafa Akkad, which I think, I hate to say, it can be a rarity in the film industry.
Yes, yeah, that is true. And I think a lot of, like, John Carpenter's issues with Akkad and Trancas were probably more down to the, there was, like, a third partner in Compass who was, like, who I think embezzled a ton of money, and I think it was down to that guy.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah. I mean,
but reading about Mustafa Akkad, he's kind of the producer that you wish you get on a production.
Yeah, and it sounds like Malik is pretty much the same, because everyone has nice things to say about him, too.
Yeah. Except for Brian Andrews, I think, or Brian Andrews was going crazy on Facebook.
Right. Brian Andrews was upset that they replaced him with Anthony Michael Hall.
Well, Brian Andrews was giving contradictory statements, I remember.
And you know what? I didn't miss him watching the movie.
It would have been nice if he could have returned, but I don't know if he could have pulled it off.
If Lonnie can get recast, so can Tommy.
True. I'm talking about maybe from a financial perspective, like this could have helped Brian Andrews. It would have helped get him back on his feet, hopefully, but, oh well, missed opportunity. But regardless, the franchise has had those changing of the guard moments that kind of make it that it's not really the same afterwards. Donald Pleasance passing away and the untimely death of Mustafa Akkad, as nice as Malik is. It doesn't have that grandfatherly touch that Mustafa had, I think.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so until Halloween ends, I guess.
Yeah, and if we ever get any other Halloween scripts.
Yeah, hopefully. I really want that Bitterman script, man.
Yeah, and, I'm pretty sure Shem was a very bitter man when Halloween 5 came out.
I wouldn't blame him. But they got Dominic Oathman and Gerard back when he got his ass fired off of Omen 4. A movie so shitty, they actually kicked him off it.
They actually what?
They actually kicked him off it, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Just imagine how much worse it could have been if he stayed on. That movie's terrible as it is.
Yeah, I know. I will say though, Halloween 5 has grown on me.
It's well directed. It's just not a great script. He should not have written is the thing.
Yeah.
But, well...
Right. Anyway, I'll be back for another script soon enough, hopefully. Maybe Alex can join.
Yeah. I should really reach out to him on something, because I know there's stuff he'd like to do. You usually talk to him through... I'm the mediary. Yeah, I'm usually the mediary on this sort of thing. Yeah, you're like the guy from Metropolis.
Yeah.
That was a fucking... Okay, that's how late it is. I'm making fucking stupid Metropolis jokes. Okay.
Well, anyway, definitely. He might be interested in the Blob. Who knows? I talked to him about it last week or before that. I think when we saw Halloween Kills. And then definitely some comic book stuff. That would be interesting to do.
Yeah, I've got so much comic book stuff left. But this is all shop talk, so hopefully you enjoyed the episode and our rambling mess. Yeah, and which I am on deadline, so this might not be very edited. So until next time.
Peace out.
Bye.
So goodbye, everybody, and remember, please, for the next day or so, the terrible lesson you learned tonight. That grinning, glowing, globular invader of your living room is an inhabitant of the pumpkin patch, and if your doorbell rings and nobody's there, that was no Martian, it's Halloween.